Good morning, everybody. Greetings from the Circuito Estoril in Portugal, the Autodromo Fernando Pérez de Silva on this 4.18 mile circuit. A fantastic return for the Porsche Cup Brasil competitors. We're here for the Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge on a Thursday, would you believe, as we kick off for an incredible week of motorsport. 4 days of action-packed drama for our Porsche drivers. We have the qualifying in both qualifying 1 and qualifying 2 for the Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge drivers today here on the Circuito Estoril. And then we have the first race of the day for both categories later this afternoon. Then we'll have race 2 tomorrow before testing returns on Saturday ahead of qualifying and the 300 kilometers endurance race on Sunday. Going to be very exciting to see how it all unfolds over the course of the next 4 days. If you are Portuguese or Brazilian, you'll be listening to Luc Monteiro as always. If you're from anywhere else in the world, it's myself, Jake Sanson, who'll be guiding you through these 4 days of action and drama, and there's going to be plenty of it over the course of the weekend. It's always a very exciting battle when the Porsche Brazil drivers come to town, and this weekend is going to be no exception at all. It's been a long breather as well since our last outing in Portugal quite a few months ago, quite a few weeks ago. Certainly, it was only a couple of months ago that they've been getting themselves back up to speed again. We're getting ourselves ready then for the first of our sessions to really take heat, and that is for the competitors in the challenge, in the Carrera Cup rookie category, I should say. So all of these are the drivers who are still getting to know the world of Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Silvio Morostone, Leonardo Sanchez, Bruno Campos, Marco Pisani, Eric Santos, Eduardo Menossi, Vanier Pontes and Flavio Champao. And as you all know, if you're regulars, and if you don't know, if you're watching for the first time, all three of these classes will go out for their qualifying session. They'll set the benchmark times, and then we will have our top 10 shootout for the competitors, hoping to get to the top spot of qualifying for the races. Of course, what is going to happen in terms of the schedule then, that means is that we're going to be very busy over the next 2 hours here on the Estoril circuit. Plenty of qualifying to get excited about. We'll have Carrera Rookie, Carrera Sport, and then the Carrera category, followed by the Challenge Rookie and Challenge Sport races. Then a quick pause, and then we'll go into Q2. Just 10 minutes for each of the competitors that are remaining for their next battle. Of course, it's going to be the top 10 competitors that will be fighting for the battle for pole position in the category. We have 2 races over the course of the day, so one of the qualifying sessions will be setting the grid for race 1, the other for race 2. So it's going to be very important for all of the contenders to give out and deliver their best performances out on the course. So we're definitely going to get to see some good battles for the weekend. This is Vanier Pontes, one of the drivers who we expect to be running up at the sharp end of this particular category. Certainly has been working hard in the build-up for this weekend. Leonardo Sanchez is going straight out of the blocks though on a 1:47.198 ahead of Leonardo Sanchez, who's brought up a 1:47.6. So they have already started the ball rolling. There is Leonardo Sanchez's time. Silvio Morostone immediately going quicker in the number 2 car, which I believe is the car that's in the background, starting to set his own decent lap times for pace. Leonardo Sanchez, the first one to really open up the taps in qualifying. Bruno Campos has come across the line for a 1:50.1 and Marco Pisani on a 1:54.96. So drivers still warming up tyres and brakes ultimately before we get to the main body of the lap times that we are expecting to see from the contenders. Based on what we saw yesterday in the official practice session, we should see some fairly competitive times from the competitors in the rookie category. Silvio Morostone's best time yesterday was a 1:42.8, so we're still a good 5 seconds away from the ultimate pace that the drivers are expecting to set. A 1:42 is a very quick lap time around here if you're a Porsche rookie driver. The competitors in the Sport and Carrera Cup categories were setting low 140s, particularly for Marcel Muller and Antonella Bassardi, who's particularly quick around this circuit. We'll talk more about her later. But Silvio Morostone, with the benchmark time thrown down of a 1:47.1, everybody's going to be pushing to get to a 1:42 and a competitive 1:43 if they want to be anywhere near the sharp end of the day, as they had 45 minutes of practice yesterday. So a 1:40 is going to be doable for the Porsche Carrera Cup drivers. A 1:42 may not be achievable in just 10 minutes for the Carrera rookie drivers, but a 1:42.2, well, that's quicker than yesterday. So what I just said, just forget it, because Leonardo Sanchez has already knocked 0.6 of a second off the time yesterday. You've got to remember that yesterday's practice session was at 3:20 yesterday afternoon, so the circuit was considerably hotter when they did practice yesterday compared to this morning when it's still fairly cool. The sun only just starting really to rise over the yard arm and start to heat the circuit. So already quicker times than yesterday. A 1:42.2 for Leonardo Sanchez. Silvio Modestoni, slower than yesterday, but quicker than he had done before. 1:43.02. Bruno Campos on a 1:43.6, and then Eduardo Menossi on a 1:43.7. Eric Santos, Michael Bazzani, Vanya Pontes, and Flavio Champao are the next ones in the lineup. There is the 33. That is Bruno Campos. So getting himself up to speed and looking very comfortable as things currently are at the moment. So let's see how the competitors are gearing themselves up for a continuation of this exciting challenge forward. Bruno Campos into the hairpin, just trying to find a little bit more time on the lap. He's done a 20.12, which is comparatively quicker than Leonardo Sanchez is currently set on this particular flying lap. So everything just getting dialed in at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what, well, that lap time, if it's quicker, is not going to be an eagle one, because the 33, Bruno Campos in the Porto car, was unfortunately just overshot there. All four wheels over the white line. Track limits are very clear in the world of motorsport at the moment, even though there was a lot of debate about it a few years ago. 2 wheels on the track is fine. All 4 wheels off it is not. So if this is an improved lap time then for Bruno Campos, I don't think it's going to be allowed to stand, because certainly all 4 wheels were off the road on both occasions there. So on the run up to the chicane and out of the final turn as well. So depending on how much leniency there is from the officials on track limits on this occasion, Bruno Campos getting a 1:42.8. So it's better than he's gone before, but certainly not enough to challenge the top spot of Leonardo Sanchez on a 1:42.21. A 1:42.29 for Silvio Moristoni now, as we watch Flavio Champao in the Bitget car. So Flavio Champao, the number 11, just trying to coax the way through. And you can see how much travel there is when you go through that sweeping left-hander. You get on the curb and the car bounces off the turn like you're sitting on a washing machine. There's not a lot of suspension on these cars. So when you throw the weight of the car in and then you just hope it hits the deck level, it's a pretty physical exercise. Flavio Champao, 1:43.98 as he goes through. There's Silvio Modestoni at turn 1 in the Capricornio car. So he's obviously trying to... Oh, no, he's a little bit further round the lap than that. My apologies. He's in the mid-sectors at the moment, climbing up that very tight left-hand hairpin through the right-hand hairpin that doubles back on itself as well. Not an easy circuit to get right in these cars. Only 8 drivers in the Carrera rookie category in 2025. There was almost a dozen last year. We've only got 8 on this occasion because most of the drivers in Carrera Cup Brasil in 2025 find themselves in the sport category. We're into the last minute of the qualifying session number 1 for Carrera rookie. Sanchez on a 1:42.21. What can Flavio Champao do? Still on a 1:43.9. Silvio Moristoni does not improve. Still on a 1:42.2. His ideal time is a 1:42.1, but his last was a 1:42.4. So no improvement there. There is the 38. That is Eric Santos in the Racing G car, I believe that is. All the drivers here, of course, bringing their own personal sponsors to the table. This is going to be the last run out of the final turn for Eric Santos. I say the last run because I think he's going to get to the finish line as the time ticks down to 0, so he shouldn't have the time, I don't think, to get another lap time in. He's going over the grid hatchings now. He might just have got another lap in, actually. But the checkered flag is coming out. Oh, no, Santos and Pontes do cross the line without time to start another lap. It looks to me as though Leonardo Sanchez's time of a 1:42.2 is not going to get eclipsed now. So Champao, Pontes, and Eric Santos have all completed. Last lap, bold wonder from Flavio Champao. He does a 1:43.84 to put himself up into 6th position there, right at the very end. Here's Leonardo Sanchez, hoping that he doesn't need to extract any more from his car, because at the moment, in the sectors, he is a 20.2 and a 50.5. Not his best at the moment. But I think he's just going through the motions here. I don't think Moristoni or Bruno Campos are going to have anything else to take after him, though he is going to complete the lap by the look of it. So here comes Leonardo Sanchez. Can he beat his own time? The answer is no. 1:42.6 as he comes across the line, so not an improvement. But that lap time alone would still have been good enough for second place in the category. So very good work indeed. So a very impressive start then as Leonardo Sanchez grabs the rookie pole. Very good work indeed. So a very interesting situation at the moment then for the Carrera rookie category. Leonardo Sanchez, Silvio Moristoni, Bruno Campos and Marco Pisani. Eduardo Menossi, Flavio Champao. Oh, Menossi's just managed to grab fourth place with his final lap there, a 1:42.914 as he comes across the line. No change for anyone else in the group, as that is Seba Malucelli getting himself ready for his run in Carrera Sport. So he'll be heading out onto the circuit next as the last couple of stragglers come back into the pit lane. But the lap time and the pole position in Carrera Rookie for qualifying 1 goes to Leonardo Sanchez. He'll be very happy indeed with that. And a very exciting situation then for the rookies as they continue in the current trajectory. So Leonardo Sanchez ahead of Silvio Moristoni. Bruno Campos in P3 ahead of Eduardo Menossi. Then Marco Pisani, Flavio Champao, Vanier Pontes and Eric Santos. That is the top 8 at the moment. And of course it is the only 8 that the competitors do. The only 8 that the competitors have done at the moment, I should say. So a very strong position for the contenders to be in here at Estoril. And I'm very glad, I have to say, that the weather conditions are so much better than they were last year. Both of the weekends we had were overcast and rather gloomy. Very reminiscent of the 1994 F1 season when we had such a difficult time that weekend in trying to keep on top of tyre temperatures, and it was very similar last year across both the sprint and endurance categories. But I'm delighted to say that this year the sun is out. It's going to be a very sunny battle for all of the contenders as they quest for more glory. Not going to be easy to determine who's going to be at the top spot moving forward, but of course certainly in rookie we know it's going to be Leonardo Sanchez. Now we turn our attentions to the competitors in the sport class. So all of the drivers, of course, racing in the same categories. They're only separated by their individual times in particular. They're only individual levels of standard of driving is what I should really say. So they all race the same car, but dependent on what your level of experience is, that tells you what performance level you should be going into. You've got the pro race drivers in the Carrera Cup. You've got the fairly competitive but Sunday almost sport drivers and new drivers in the sport category, and then the rookies who are here getting their first taste of motorsport behind the wheel are in the rookie category. And it's exactly the same in Sprint Challenge, although the Sprint Challenge cars are slightly less in terms of power. And it's a completely different grid of race car as well. Out onto the circuit then come the sport drivers. Alcy Feldman, Carlos Campos, Marcos Regodas, Miguel Mariotti, Ryan Mascherello, Gustavo Janon, Josimar Junior, Rodrigo Melo, Christian Muir, Israel Salman, Francisco Horta, Roman Zimkiewicz, Marco Billy, Nelson Montero, Alcio Felmanito, Seba Malucelli, then Nelson Marcondes and Linu Perez. Those are the drivers listed in this year's entry list. Not all of those drivers necessarily are here for this weekend, of course, because you enter your registered entry at the start of the year, and because of various other commitments, you don't always end up going to every round of the championship, and there are a few occasions when the drivers will miss a race or two in the weekend. But certainly in the order that they've left the pits, we have Israel Salmen, Roman Zimkiewicz, Miguel Mariotti, Nelson Marcondes, Junior, Carlos Campos, who is also one of the Masters drivers, along with Nelson Montero, Christian Muir, Linu Perez, Gustavo Janon, Rodrigo Melo, Marco Billy, Alcio Felmanito, Francisco Horta, Marcos Regodas, and Seba Malucelli. Now, I haven't seen Alcy Feldman coming out onto the course just yet. That doesn't mean he's not going to, but of course we did see an absentee from Alcy Feldman earlier this season, who is the father of Alcy Felmanito, who also races in single-seaters, of course. But Fascinating to see how it all continues on. There is the Galacticos car. That belongs to Carlos Campos, one of the two masters in this particular category. The other one is Nelson Montero. You have to be over the age of 40 to be in the masters category. So the drivers getting themselves up to speed. In the background there, you just caught a whiff of Linu Perez, the treble 8. Now, this is the class where occasionally you will get a driver in the sport category challenging the machinations of the Carrera Cup drivers. This is based on experience, not in terms of car ability. And so yesterday, we actually had a faster driver across the Carrera Sport drivers in the unofficial test session than we did in Carrera Cup. To give you an idea, eventually the Carrera Cup drivers did balance it out. But Marcel Muller's time was a 1:40.275, and Alcifer Manito, who set the fastest lap in the sport category, did a 1:40.904, which was enough to go fourth quickest in Carrera Cup if he had been so daring to go into the Carrera Cup this year. So he would have been the fourth quickest driver in that category. So that tells you the level of the competition. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how it all continues to battle out. So as the drivers get them into a strong position, the warm-up phase of the competitors now going strong. Another 10 minutes on the board, of course. The drivers will just warm up the tyres and brakes to give themselves the chance to motor on around the course. But great to see everybody putting in such a great effort and a good display here to move their way further forward. So the drivers just working the tyres and brakes to optimum temperature. You've got to have the car at peak performance in order to get the most out of it. But the drivers obviously have to do a lot of work to make sure that the car is performing at a decent level. Wonderful to see this former Formula One venue, of course, being used again in Porsche Cup Brasil in the year that celebrates 20 years of racing in top-level Carrera Cup racing in Brazil. And, of course, it was 40 years ago that the great Ayrton Senna da Silva got his first Formula One race victory for the Lotus team at this very circuit at the beginning of the 1985 season in the second race of the year. And that started a legacy that everyone who is into cars around the world knows the name of. We're currently looking at Alcifer Manito in the Rust-eze car, very much carrying the colours of the fantastic Disney Pixar character Lightning McQueen. His colour scheme looking very cool indeed. Nice to see a little bit of childish banter. Of course, Alcifer Manito is absolutely the right age to be a fan of Lightning McQueen. We're going to follow him around on this lap and see what it's like for him at the full limit of adhesion. 3.5 minutes remaining then in the Carrera Cup Sport category of the latest incarnation of the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil calendar. Oh, and off the road while on a flying lap. Well, that is the scariest way to get it wrong and then come onto the circuit right in front of another competitor, Christian Moore, who was one of the front runners in last year's Sprint Challenge campaign. Big off as he was really pushing his way out of turn 2. Let's have a look at it again. Just carrying far too much speed out of the right-hander and traveling straight through the gravel trap and actually coming back on the circuit right in the path of Carlos Campos in the Galacticos car. Looks as though he hasn't been the only one who's been riding the crest of the wave. Here's Miguel Mariotti, who of course has a race win overall to his name. So Miguel Mariotti took victory at Portimao earlier this season. It's not the first time that a Carrera Sport driver has taken an overall victory in the category, of course, because last year we had the fantastic run at Velocita from Ryan Mascherano. So much better to see how the competitors are getting on. So really exciting situation for all of the contenders going for that pole position slot. Currently it's Roman Simkovic, but will Miguel Mariotti get to the top spot? He does! 1:41.053 for Miguel Mariotti. He goes to the top spot ahead of Roman Simkovic. We've got a 1:41.256. Now again, compared to yesterday, that shows you how quick the cars are, because they were in the 1:42s yesterday and we're already at the 1:41.0 mark. So we're already over a second quicker than we were yesterday. That means that there's a little bit of pressure now on the Carrera Cup drivers to maintain that kind of speed advantage over the sport drivers and try and push their way into the 1:40s. So we're currently looking at Marcos Regadas, one of the drivers who could fly his way up the order. 1:42.3 is where he's currently sat, but he could really do with a bit more than that. Only looking at 13th quickest at the moment, but a 19.9 in Sector 1 is good. So is a 49.5 in the second split. So Marcos Regadas, I think, is about to shoot up from where he currently stands. Try and find out where he's going to go, and he goes top spot. Marcos Regadas, a 1:40.85. And so these cars are already flirting at 2 seconds quicker than they were in during yesterday's second free practice session, the official practice session yesterday afternoon. So amazing stuff. There is the 24, trying to get up to speed a bit more as well. That is Gustavo Janon in the Seguralta car. But Gustavo Janon hoping for a little bit more from this lap if he can find it. But certainly a very steady start to things at the moment. So excellent performance so far from Gustavo Janon. But it's that little bit of a twitch as he rolls his way through the left-hander there as he hugs the apex and tries not to spit the car out into the kitty litter on the far side. Across the line then. So let's see if that has made a big difference to his performance. Hasn't really. I think he overshot during that lap. Yeah, his lap time was only a 1:42.4 compared to his best of a 1:42.1. There's Lightning McQueen, also known as Alsu Feldman-Nito, the very talented young teenager who made his debut in the category last year. He's now part of the elite of the competitors in the top 10 all the time in the Carrera Cup category. Certainly made a big impression. His father, of course, Alsu Feldman, racing regularly in the Tag Heuer car, although certainly for the Portuguese events, he's not been able to attend. As the number 21 is pushing one more time, that's Miguel Mariotti, the man who won overall, not just in the sport class, but actually won the race outright at Portimao for race 2 in the sprints category. So let's see if he's going to get his chance to get back on the top spot, because currently he's only P6, a thousandth of a second slower than Israel Salman, the former rookie champion. In fact, he is, of course, the reigning rookie class champion. Stepped up to sport this year. Big run wide, though, from Mariotti. That's really going to affect his opportunity to move his way further forward. But he does get a time of third position. It's now updated on my timing screen. It was a little bit late through the graphic, unfortunately, but third position for Miguel Mariotti as Alsu Feldman-Nito's gone top spot. Alsu Feldman-Nito, 1:40.352, 352, sorry, quicker than Linu Perez as well. So Mariotti went up into third place, but they both managed to displace Marcos Regadas. There is Linu Perez, who went second in the map for Victor car, the treble 8. So Linu Perez into second position now, ahead of Miguel Mariotti and Marcos Regadas. Christian Moore, who flew off the road earlier in P5. Then Salmen, Marcondes, Monteiro, Francisco Horta, and Rumen Simkovic. But Lightning McQueen is on top. The Brazilian Lightning McQueen, as he's also known, Alcifel Manito. Excellent display from the young number 95. And so Alcifel Manito goes top spot in the sport category. A very good start indeed. And so he'll be very happy indeed with that. The teenage talent from Pueyrredon in Santa Catarina. Great to see him do such a fantastic job. Nelson Marcondes, of course, getting out of the car. And there is young Lightning McQueen. He even runs in a Lightning McQueen helmet and race suit. He absolutely loves his motorsport, does Alcifel Manito. And out of the car, it's the number 27. That is, of course, the car belonging to Yosimar Junior. Not as distinctive a livery as last year, because Yosimar Junior, of course, ran last year in the Ayrton Senna colours that the late, great legend raced with on his helmet. He actually bedecked the entire Porsche Carrera Cup car in those colours last year to honour and commemorate 30 years since his very sad passing. So now we get ourselves ready for the next encounter on the circuit, which is going to be another 10 minutes, but this time it will be for the big dogs, as it were, the Carrera Cup drivers. There are not many of them in 2025, but there are certainly some big talents amongst them. The 7 drivers that were registered this year, ready for another exciting battle on circuit. They've had a lot of competition this year for the top spot. And after a difficult start to the year, it finally looks as though Antonello Bassani is picking up the tack again and getting up to speed. I wonder if there was a little bit of sandbagging yesterday from championship leader Miguel Paludo, who did not actually set a decent time in yesterday's official practice session. A 1:41.577, admittedly quicker than anybody managed in either the lower end outside the top 5 of sport or any of the rookie drivers. But for him, I would expect Miguel Paludo to be knocking on the door of the top 3. So either he's got issues or he wasn't really finding the most out of his car yesterday. But here come the Magnificent 7, the drivers that will go for the overall glory, and certainly one of these 7 will be the Porsche Brazil champion in 2025, and it looks almost certain at this stage of the season that it's going to be yet another championship title for the number 7, the 42-year-old Miguel Paludo from Porto Alegre in Rio Grande do Sul, who has won multiple championships. There he is in the Brandt Porsche number 7, won multiple championships here in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, as well as having raced and competed in the ARCA East, NASCAR Trucks, GT World Challenge Europe, and the NASCAR Xfinity Series over the years. Plenty of great talent from him over the years. He broke the win record all time earlier on this season to get over 40 victories. I think he did the same thing for pole positions a bit later on. There is the 544, one of the men who has had more bad luck this year than any driver should ever go through in their entire career. Marcel Muller has had 3 race victories taken away from him this season due to a puncture. That is almost unbelievable to consider. But he was leading at Velocita, round 1, puncture down the order. Then at round 2, just a few weeks later, leading again, puncture. Then unbelievably at Interlagos, he was leading at round 3, and yet again, puncture. More bad luck for Marcel Muller this year than any one driver should go through in one campaign. And almost certainly he'd be fighting for the championship if it weren't for those 3 punctures. He's definitely had the worst bad luck of any racing driver, I think, in the whole world in 2025. But that hasn't deterred him. He knows that the championship is probably done, but race wins are what he's all about. So he's going to try and put himself right back up the order again. We're also going to get to see car number 72, the Mobile 1 car, the lone lady in the world of Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil, and that is the 19-year-old megastar Antonella Bassani, who has been colouring herself in glory since she won the Porsche Sprint Challenge title 2 years ago as a 17-year-old rookie in sports car racing. She's definitely got a massive future as Antonella Bassani. There she is, the 72 in the Mobile 1 car going through turn 1. And then Miguel Paludo going places in her career as Antonella Bassani. She's not the only one to have spotted her incredible ability. Next month in the Stock Car Pro Brazil category, she's actually going to be stepping up to replace, of all people, Rubens Barrichello, who recently won his maiden NASCAR Brazil championship campaign. So he's become a NASCAR Brazil champion amongst all the other titles he's won over the years. But Rubens Barrichello will step aside on the third weekend of September from his stock car role, and it'll be Antonella Bassani that gets her first shot of racing in Stock Car Brazil, just because of how impressed people are with this phenomenal young talent, and I, for one, am definitely amongst them. So great to see all of the drivers putting in a sensational battle out on the course. The time to beat, of course, is a 1 minute 40.352, set by Brazil's answer to Lightning McQueen, Alsu Feldmanito in the Rusty's number 95 car. Then Linu Perez ahead of Miguel Mariotti, Marcos Regadas, Christian Moore, Isra Salmen, Nelson Marcondes, Nelson Monteiro, Francisco Horta, and Rumen Zimkiewicz in the top 10. But now we've got the 7 superb racers in the Carrera Cup. The Magnificent 7, Marcel Muller, Thiago Vivacqua, Antonella Bassani, Miguel Paludo, Lucas Salas, Christian Hahn, and the teenage superstar Matthias Camparato. So let's see how the drivers get on. The fantastic trackside camera putting the drivers up to speed. Now already we're lapping about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds quicker than we were in yesterday's free practice session on the former Formula 1 venue at Estoril. Very important season this for Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. We're celebrating 20 years of motorsport, going back to that first race weekend in 2005 at the Interlagos circuit, the home of Formula 1 in Brazil since 1990. But this year also marks 40 years since the first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix victory of a young Ayrton Senna da Silva on this very circuit at Estoril in Portugal. So it's a very special opportunity for us to be racing on this course again. Last year, both in the sprints and endurance, it was a lot cooler than it was on this particular weekend. There is the number 10 car. That's the machine that belongs to Thiago Vivacqua. I think that's his third different paint scheme this year. Of course, the drivers don't run in teams in the same way that they do in some of the other Carrera Cup championships around the world. In Porsche Brazil, it is one in-house team looking after every single car. You can bring your own mechanic if you want to assist them in engineering your own car, but there are no teams in Porsche Brazil as such. Everybody has exactly the same car and can go and play with them. So we're watching Thiago Vivacqua just trying to get himself up to speed. A 1 minute 40.352 to beat. He'll almost certainly do that in the first or second flying lap. But the NHJ de Brazil car, number 10, looking to work its way further forward. That's the Galactico Capital car. And that's Thiago Vivacqua, not quite going to the top spot yet. So his banker time is a 1:44.3. Incidentally, the lady driver Antonella Bassani was the quicker of the first 2 drivers to get the lap time down on the banker, and she was second quickest yesterday in free practice. So Antonella Bassani, the 19-year-old lady who's got such a great future in sports car racing, not just in the South American motorsport scene, but worldwide, in my opinion. Certainly if Brazil had ever considered putting a lady to Le Mans, well, Antonella Bassani is definitely a prime talent for that. Still only 19 years of age, would you believe? Still a Porsche Sprint Challenge champion 2 years ago at the age of 17. That is just extraordinary when you consider that she was competing up against drivers who were 10 to 15 years her senior, in some cases more than double her age, and still such a phenomenal superstar talent. Has stepped up to Carrera Cup this year. not just in any class, but in the pro category. A lot of drivers, when they come out of Sprint Challenge, they go in at the rookie category or they go in at the sport category. Not Antonella Bassani. She went, no, I'm a professional racing driver. I want to mix it with the best of them. I'm going into the Premier class. And she has yet to take her first win in her first season in the Carrera Cup main category. But if there's going to be a chance for her to do it, it could be this weekend. And this afternoon, she gets her first shot. And then tomorrow morning, she gets the chance to do it all over again. Hello to everybody watching where you're around the world. If you're watching from Brazil and you want the English language, a very, very good morning to you and a very early morning to you because it's about 6:45 in the morning back home in Brazil, 10:45 here in Portugal. Across the line, Tiago Vavacqua has done a 1:39.8. Peludo does a 1:40.2, slower than Antonella Bassani. So Bassani really is flying here this weekend. She's quicker than the championship leader, Miguel Peludo. There is Tiago Vavacqua, still the man to beat, it seems. 1:39.85, so that's ridiculously quicker than we had yesterday. And considering that Tiago Vavacqua's time yesterday was a 1:41.2, for him to do a 1:39.8 today, blimey, he's had his Weetabix, hasn't he? No pastel de nata for him. Antonella Bassani, 19 years of age, the Mobile 1 driver. Everybody keeping an eye on this extraordinary talent. She's actually going to be replacing Rubens Barrichello in the third round of the Stock Car Pro Brazil next month as the newly crowned NASCAR Brazil champion. Yep, I said it. That is Rubens Barrichello, a good friend of us here at Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil we're talking about. Has other engagements on that weekend. So our very own Antonella Bassani will be stepping into his racing shoes for that weekend. What an honor for the 19-year-old lady, Antonella Bassani, to replace a former Ferrari, Williams and Braun GP Grand Prix driver. Absolutely astonishing. And a real distinguishing marker of her talent for the future. And for those who are wondering where is the significance to Rubens Barrichello for the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, other than being Brazilian, well, he was the endurance champion last year. Across the line, Tiago Vavacqua's time is beaten by Antonella Bassani. 1:39.808. She's got pole position so far. Can anybody beat her? Yes, Marcel Muller can. Well, that's not a big shot. Marcel Muller goes into the 1:38 with a 1:38.945. That was so close for Bassani. She had pole position there for about 7 seconds. And then Marcel Muller came along and stole it away from her. And Christian Hahn goes into second place now as well. Well, this is definitely the fastest weekend of 2025 for Antonella Bassani as Tiago Vavacqua finds a little bit more than the racetrack. And as a result, I don't think this is going to be a particularly quick time for Tiago Vavacqua. Indeed, it isn't. His first sector was a 19.78. That's slower than he's been before in Sector 1. But Christian Hahn is comparable in the first sector. In fact, his best sector, his Sector 1 time on his best lap was 0.03 of a second slower than Tiago Vavacqua's. So there is a reason for Vavacqua to keep his foot down, because he might be able to get onto the front row of the grid. Antonella Bassani's quick in Sector 1 too, 19.77. She's quicker than both Vavacqua and Christian Hahn were. Though pole position is not done yet here. Everybody that's still on the flying lap can commit to it. But Bassani has now bailed on the lap, 50.82, so she will be no better than third. But Vavacqua's done a 48.8 in the second split. Christian Hahn's done a 48.7. Christian Hahn across the line, 1:39.689. That's an improvement. But will Vavacqua go quicker still? Can Tiago Vavacqua get onto the front row of the grid? No. 1:39.85 remains his best time. His final sector, he made a big error and so drops to a 1:40.0 in the end. There is the championship leader, Miguel Peludo, who is only P5. Incredible. So Miguel Peludo, only 5th position in Q1. And that is going to make it very entertaining indeed for race 1 later. There's Lucas Salas, who's only managed to go P6 on this occasion in the Wish Porsche. And there's the Blau Porsche, number 26, Christian Hahn. The Blau competition car, able to go second quickest then, to go on the front row of the grid for race 1 alongside Marcel Muller. Then Antonella Bassani third, from Tiago Vavacqua, Miguel Peludo, Lucas Salas, and the teenager, Matheus Camparato, nowhere near as quick here as he is when he goes to Brazil. Though the Farben 544 bags another pole position in 2025, but his bad luck this year, he's really got to hope that it's gone away from him. He was leading at Velocita, got a puncture in race 1. At round 2, also at Velocita, he was leading. Puncture again. At round 3 at Interlagos, he was leading. Race 1, puncture again. Incredible. So hopefully this second half of the season, Marcel Müller is going to steal back some of those points that were robbed from him in the opening 3 weekends of the championship. Who knows where he'd be sitting in the championship had it not been for deflated rubber. Waving to his sponsors and his fans at the top there. But the Farben Patros Porsche, once again, pole position in 2025 for Marcel Müller. He really is raking them in 2025. And there's Christian Hahn. Good effort from him to go second, looking much stronger than in the first half of the season. But the Blau car definitely back on form compared to where it was before. Had a very difficult start to the season. But certainly for Q1, Marcel Müller is the fastest driver. My Portuguese is limited, but it looked to me like they were talking about the second lap being when the tyres started to depreciate. But still, a pole position for Marcel Müller, and they can be very happy indeed with that. That's Q1 taken care of in the Carrera Cup category. They'll go out again later for Q2. Back-to-back qualifying sessions here, so for those who wanted a taste of motorsport on a Thursday, boy, are you in for a spoiled treat. Excellent stuff for all of the contenders. I've just been reported by my producer, Nicholas Ottolu, who wanted to say that is exactly what they were saying in Portuguese. There you go. I've been working on Portuguese motorsport for so long, I'm almost a native. Almost, he says. I haven't even got my lifetime supply of pastel de nata yet. Into the sprint challenge we go then for the first session. They're going to be separated into 2 sessions instead of 3 in the sprint challenge categories. That's because this year we have a slightly depreciated entry list compared to last year. So we're going to get the challenge rookies going out first, and then we'll get the challenge and challenge sport drivers in the second session. Been a very competitive category, the challenge sport drivers. Basically, for those who think they know what Porsche racing is, if they've watched the Porsche Super Cup during a Formula 1 weekend, or they've watched the British, the Benelux, or the German Championship, well, Porsche Brazil runs very differently compared to those championships. Those series, they have teams engineering each of the cars for each of the drivers. This is completely different. All of the cars are engineered in-house by the competitors here at the circuit. So it's all one team. Now you can choose, if you wish, to bring your own mechanics in to assist the operation of the team, but there are no actual teams. There's no teams championship here. It's just every driver for themselves in these particular categories. And the only difference really between the Sprint Challenge cars and the Carrera Cup cars is certainly not in appearance, because they're exactly the same car, but there's a slight difference in power between the two. The limiter has been put on the Sprint Challenge cars, it's taken off on the Carrera Cup. That's the only difference. So heading out onto the circuit, that is Rafa Brocchi in the X99 car, the number 2 machine. So Rafa Brocchi heading out onto the circuit. There's the 18, that is Ricardo Zilberman. Now there is a new driver competing this weekend in Sprint Challenge for the first time, which is always very exciting. We had a couple of new faces at the beginning of this year, but we've rarely had drivers joining in midway through the season, as there is William Araujo getting involved on the circuit in the Hyman car. So the number 33 car goes out onto the circuit once again. But we do have a new face in Porsche Sprint Challenge this weekend, as far as my spies in the skies tell me. It's as though we're going to have a new competitor getting involved this weekend, and that is going to be the, if memory serves me correctly, that is going to be one of the drivers in the Sprint Challenge category. So if all goes according to plan for the drivers in the Sprint Challenge, we're going to get the appearance of a new competitor, and that is the number 46 of Fabian Taraborelli. So if we do get Fabian Taraborelli, he's certainly entered for this weekend. I haven't seen him out on the track just yet, but hopefully he will be joining at the last moment, the number 46 car. So we'll keep an eye on the pale blue and white machine to make sure it joins in the fun with all the others. Certainly in the Carrera Sprint Challenge in the Porsche Sprint Challenge rookie category. We've certainly got all the regulars out on the circuit this time, namely Rafa Brocchi, Ricardo Silverman, Daniel Newman, William Araujo, Claudio Chimiao, Jose Morenito, Claudio Reina, Rafael Bernardes, and Fernando Aruda. They're all out on the circuit together, all 8 of them. It should actually be all 10 of them because, of course, there is one car missing from the regular drivers that we normally have out on the circuit, and that is Jose Morenito. The number 45 car is not out on the circuit, nor is Fabian Taraborelli, the new driver. So I wonder if there's been some last-minute cancellations to the proceedings then, as we currently look at Claudio Chimiao. So Claudio Chimiao getting himself up to speed and learning the circuit in some cases. You've got to remember that these are the drivers from Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil and Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil. So this is new territory for some of them. They race only purely at the Velocita and Interlagos circuits when they race in Brazil this year, but they have 2 foreign segues, as it were. One to the Portimao circuit, which was earlier this year, and now this week at Estoril. And we've got racing all the way through the week, because we've got qualifying and racing today. 2 hours after qualifying ends, we go into the first race for Carrera Cup Brazil and Sprint Challenge Brazil. Then tomorrow, we have race 2 in both categories. Saturday, testing. And then Sunday, qualifying and the race for a 300-kilometer endurance race, which will have 2 drivers per car. And that's going to be a very exciting battle from lights out to checkered flag. Let me tell you, the endurance race always gives us plenty of spice and drama. But we're getting quite a bit of that already in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, certainly. In Porsche Sprint Challenge, I have no doubt it's going to be the same. Now, looking at the times that were set in the Sprint Challenge yesterday in the official practice session, the fastest time of all was set actually by one of the rookie drivers, would you believe? A 1:42.94 by Daniel Newman. So he was actually quicker than anybody managed to go in either Challenge or Challenge Sport. So there is a genuine possibility that we may get a pole position outright from a rookie in Sprint Challenge. Now, that doesn't happen very often at all. This would be quite an opportunity for this man, Daniel Newman, if he can get the WSC car to the top spot. A 1:43.20, and that is only 0.4 of a second slower than he managed yesterday in free practice. So imagine if he could go quicker still, because at the moment, a 1:43.2 is still quicker than Caio Chavez, the fastest driver in Challenge managed yesterday, and faster than Jose Morenito managed in Challenge Sport yesterday. So I'm not quite sure where either Jose Morenito or Fabian Taraborelli are today, because they should be out there. Oh, they're in Sport. Now, of course, Jose Morenito started the year in the rookie category, but has since moved up to Sport. That's why I got confused. And Fabian Taraborelli is actually running in the Sport category, not in the rookie category. So we will see him out there, but not in this class. 1:43.20 though for Daniel Newman. That's quicker than either Jose Morenito, the fastest man in Sport, or Caio Chavez, the fastest man in Challenge, managed yesterday. So he's still lapping ridiculously quickly. So let's see how Daniel Newman is able to settle in, because at the moment his lap time is not as quick as he set yesterday, but still quicker than he managed to set, still quicker than any of the Challenge or Challenge Sport drivers managed to set yesterday. So Daniel Newman, very quick and looking potential for an overall pole position. Forget the rookie pole, he might get it overall. As we currently watch the 99, that's Claudio Reina in the gorgeous purple, red and yellow machine. That is the Latin Porsche. Absolutely astonishing. I love the artwork in these cars in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, because you remember Latin Americans have a real passion when it comes to motorsport, and so that often reflects very well in their racing liveries. I still miss the livery that we had from Yosemar Junior last year, who was paying tribute to the late great Ayrton Senna, with 2024 marking 30 years since his tragic passing. And he ran with his Porsche all year last year in the traditional Senna helmet colours adorning his Porsche. I really hope that someone from Mini GT or Spark Models or someone along those lines decides to make a model of that car, because if they do, I will be the first one in the queue to buy that and put that on my shelf. It looked absolutely gorgeous last year, and it was certainly one of the most beautiful Porsches I've ever seen. Right, Daniel Newman's got quicker still, a 142.2. So a 142.229 now, that's even quicker. William Araujo does a 143.4. Fernando Arruda third, ahead of Rafael Bernardes. And then we've got Claudio Reina, Rafa Brocchi, Claudio Chimiao, and Ricardo Zilberman. So excellent stuff so far. But Daniel Newman looking good for pole position, not just in the rookie category, but maybe overall as well, if his lap times continue to be faster than the challenge and sport drivers yesterday. The Fios from Brazil car, number 21, Daniel Newman, the leading rookie. Can he go fastest of all? He's certainly going to go fastest of all in the category. There's no doubt about that. 142.0. Goodness me. Daniel Newman, absolutely on it. And for reference, that is 9/10 of a second quicker than he went yesterday. 1.3 quicker than Caio Chavez, the leading challenge driver yesterday. And 1.7 quicker than Jose Mononito, the leading sport driver yesterday. So Daniel Newman has thrown down the gauntlet for pole position overall. That's going to be hard for anybody in any category to beat. So there is Claudio Chimiao trying to break his way into the top 5 if he can. Well, he's improved the time. It's a 146.5, but that will not put him any higher. So Chimiao remains in P7 as across the line goes Rafael Bernardes, and he's the first one to take the checkered flag. He gets a 144.9. That's not as quick as his best, the 144.2. Checkered flag coming out now down the straight. As over the line goes Ricardo Zilberman. That's a 150.6, his best lap of the session. Oh, big hold up on the session here. And that's going to be an absolutely enraged William Arruda, because in front of him, that is Fernando Arruda. And those two are battling over second place. Wow, Fernando Arruda has not made friends with William Araujo there. He's held him up and he's tried to scamper away from him because he doesn't want a knuckle sandwich. But that's not going to make either driver particularly happy, as William Araujo and Fernando Arruda are trying to go as quick as Rafa Brocchi. As Rafa Brocchi does a 143.07 on his last lap to go within 1 second of Daniel Newman. But what can Fernando Arruda do as he comes across the line? Will he be good enough for third place? No. And that makes it all the more frustrating for William Araujo, who got held up by Arruda on that lap. And Araujo is going to be absolutely enraged. He backed right out in the second and third sectors as a result of getting held there, and he was going quicker. While Araujo finishing up in third place, but his first sector was his best so far, 20.37, quicker than Rafa Brocchi's. So I've got a feeling that William Araujo is going to have a bit of a word with Fernando Arruda after the session, and it might not be a particularly polite one, because second place could have been on the cards there for William Araujo. As now Arruda goes fourth, Reina fifth, Bernardes sixth, Chimiao seventh, and Zilberman is in eighth place. Well, Rafa Brocchi gets away with that one, then remains in second place. I think he's kind of lucky to be there, to be honest. Because I think William Araujo would definitely have gone quicker had he not been held up by Fernando Arruda. But this man, Daniel Newman, the number 21, well, this is a shock, because that kind of pace is lightning, it has to be said. And this is a man who might not just get pole position in rookie, which of course he has, but that might not get beaten in either sport or challenge. And if that's the case, then Daniel Newman is going to be the first rookie pole position sitter in sprint challenge, at least in the last 2 seasons, because I don't think anybody in the rookie category did so last year, and certainly it hasn't happened so far this year either. So you've got to go back to, I think, about 2022 to the last time a rookie driver put it on pole position overall. And that is an amazing opportunity if that's the case for Daniel Newman. But certainly with a 142.034, I mean, that is terrifying how quick that is. His second lap, by the way, his last lap there was a 1:42.4, and that was quick enough to go faster than the next best driver by 0.6 on its own. That's how fast Daniel Newman is around here. He is a second quicker than Rafa Brocchi in second. Well, an absolutely ecstatic pit crew. Daniel Newman just waits because he knows that a 1:42.0 is very quick indeed. Gets a nice congratulations there from his fellow drivers and from his engineer there, keeping an eye on things as well. You got a 1:42.0, by the way. A 1:42 what? Sounds to me like they're talking a lot there about grip in the slower apexes, essentially. They're trying to figure out where the car starts to rotate, because that's one of the difficulties in this car. When the rear starts to snap away, when you get a little bit of power down, because these cars are quite top heavy, the center of gravity is not very aerodynamic. You get the car to be as aerodynamic as possible, but essentially it's an aerodynamic slab going through the air. So the back end starts to travel at a certain point in the apex. And it sounded to me like the engineer there was just discussing with Daniel, where in the corner does the car start to snap away? Is it halfway round the radius? Is it 2/3 around the radius? You just got to try and figure out exactly where the car is starting to snap away, because they can make some slight adjustments to the setup of the car, and that essentially gives them a little bit less turning through the corner itself. Because you want a clean, smooth steering, Brett. You don't want to be rolling around all over the place in the apex. So that's something that they need to figure out, essentially. So out on the circuit we go again as the Challenge and Sport drivers head out onto the circuit together, because the number of drivers in each class means that there is a clean enough circuit that you can send both classes out together. So that is exactly what we will do. And so the contenders venture out onto the circuit for Q1 in the Sprint Challenge and Sprint Challenge Sport classes. That means we're going to see Caio Chavez, Jose Moranito, Leonardo Herman, George Crispin, Cecilia Rebello, the former teammate. Oh, and that is a spin for Leonardo Herman. Well, that is the quickest spin I've seen from him in one weekend. It's literally the outlap. Turn 2, Leonardo Herman getting the car up to temperature. This is the frustrating thing with Leonardo Herman. He is a race winner. He is an incredibly strong driver. And then he'll just make the slightest error in judgment. He's trying to get the car up to speed, and he's just tanked it on the throttle way too early. Hits the throttle. Right, I'm ready. Oh, whoops. No, I'm not. The car's not up to temperature yet. And unfortunately, for somebody of the talent of Leonardo Herman, that's almost inexcusable. Out of the circuit goes Sark Leiter, one of the 5 drivers in the challenge category. There are 7 drivers in Carrera Cup. There are only 5 in Sprint Challenge. Caio Chavez, Leonardo Herman, Gerson Campos, Caio Castro, and Sark Leiter. There is the chrome silver of Leonardo Herman. The car now recovering, but that's one of the drivers in the top class spinning through turn 2 on the outlap. That's essentially, you know, the best of the 3 classes on the circuit. That's a bit like asking one of the hypercar drivers to go out and set a good lap time, and on their outlap they spin it. Not what you come to expect at all. So the driver's getting themselves up to speed then, the time to beat, and it is going to be tough to beat it for any of the drivers in this particular run, a 1:42.034. I mean, it's a very difficult situation, because all of the drivers here know that their best lap time yesterday is going to need to be beaten by 1.3 seconds if you're Caio Chavez, or 1.7 seconds if you're Jose Moranito. And if you're anybody else, well, you're going to really have to smash through your own ability. So pole position overall could still be Daniel Newman in 7 minutes' time, and that would be an amazing achievement for young Daniel Newman. So now the driver's getting themselves up to speed. There is Sadaglaita going into his first lap time out on the course. Very fast this straight, one of the longest in the championship, if not the longest in the championship. I think Portimao might just be longer actually. But certainly here at Estoril, it gives you such a big mission to get on the brakes for turn one, reprofiled, of course, since it was last used in Formula One. But Sadaglaita is still getting himself up to speed there, still getting the tyres up to temperature. In front of him is Lucas Locatelli, as Caio Chavez and Jose Moranito set their first laps to get in amongst the rookies, just to put some bankers down, essentially. Mario Delada, Cecilio Rebello, and George Crispim have all done exactly the same thing, as is Andrei Gaczynski, and they've all gone quicker than Ricardo Zilberman. There's Caio Chavez. This is the man who's bidding to win a victory for the ages in this category. Wants to win overall. But certainly in terms of lap times, his practice fastest was not as quick as Daniel Newman yesterday. And he's got to find 1.3 seconds more than his time on the blocks yesterday. And that seems a big ask when you consider that that was a 45-minute session yesterday. And he's only got to find that time in 5 minutes. Now, obviously, they test many different things in Porsche Brazil during that 45-minute session. They figure out the tyre temperatures, they figure out the brake pressure, they figure out everything in terms of the turning geometry on the wheel. They fine-tune all those things through the session, so it's not a qualifying session by any means. They're trying to set the car up to make sure that it feels right. So you're not going to produce your best until qualifying anyway. But how much time does Caio Chavez or Jose Moranito really feel that they hope to gain compared to yesterday? Because Daniel Newman's time was only a few tenths quicker. Both Chavez and Jose Moranito are going to have to go over a second quicker than they have managed so far this weekend if they want to get pole position. That's a big ask. 1:42.0 to beat. What's the time from Caio Chavez? 1:42.4. Right, so the battle for pole position is on. He's got to find another 0.375 of a second if he wants to match the time of Daniel Newman. Gerson Campos goes third on a 1:42.42. Sadaglaita, not as quick as Brocchi, but quicker than Jose Moranito, who does a 1:43.4. And Jose Moranito has gone quicker than he has gone in this weekend. So that lays down the gauntlet for Jose Moranito, and he is currently P6, just in behind Sadaglaita. But Daniel Newman is still quickest on a 1:42.03. Here's Sadaglaita. Sadaglaita has a 1:43.3 to his name. 49.8 in the second sector, though. So this is going to be mighty from Sadaglaita if he can hold this together. He's going to be up there with a similar sort of time to Daniel Newman. Slower in sector 1 than him, but quicker in sector 2 by about the same margin. We need to be looking, that is Gerson Campos, but we need to go back to the finish line here, really, because we could see a new pole sitter in Sadaglaita. Campos pushing hard. Sadaglaita second by 0.145. As Caio Chavez is 20.1 in the first sector, 49.9 in the second. Chavez could be going pole position here. Is Daniel Newman going to hold on to it? I'm not sure he will now, because it looks as though the challenge drivers have found their feet. Gerson Campos still pushing the car like crazy, trying to find a little bit more. Caio Chavez will come across the line any moment now, as too will Gerson Campos. Campos not as quick in the second split as Caio Chavez. Will we get a new pole position here? Chavez, 1:41.946. He's done it by 88 thousandths of a second quicker than Daniel Newman. We will not see a rookie driver take pole position. What a shame. That was so nearly a little piece of history made by Daniel Newman. But once the Carrera Sprint Challenge drivers get up to speed, it's very hard to rein them in. Gerson Campos still P4. Jose Moranito now up to P5 ahead of Castro and Brocchi. Lucas Locatelli is 8th overall now from Araujo and Mario Dallara. But Caio Chavez has wiped the smile from Daniel Newman's face. It was looking so rosy for him to get an overall pole position there. He may be content with a second place if he stays there. There is Taraborelli making his debut in the category. So the new driver, Fabian Taraborelli, looking very smart in the car, carrying the number 46 in the similar insignia to that of Valentino Rossi. I wonder if he is a fan of Il Dottore. Certainly for the moment, Caio Chavez running a perfect session. And oh, he's been given a track limits warning there. Now, that's interesting because his third lap is apparently going to be exceeding track limits. Well, that means his time's been disallowed. So Caio Chavez's time for pole position is disallowed. That means Daniel Newman is back on top. Can Chavez put this one together? Yes! 1:41.73. Oh, wow. Caio Chavez goes quicker still. So for a heartbeat there, Daniel Newman thought maybe I'm going to get pole position after all. And then just as quickly, Caio Chavez puts that to bed immediately. Wow. Track limits on lap 3 to get him the pole position, and then he smashes Newman's time by 0.3 of a second. There is Leonardo Herrmann, who's finally got his silver machine up to speed. I wonder if he calls that car Hawkwind. You've got to be a rock fan to understand that one. Fortunately, I've been playing guitar since 1997, so my nerditry when it comes to rock riffs knows no bounds. Out of the final turn. Oh, just a little bit over the line there for Leonardo Herrmann. That might not stand as he comes through out of the final turn, and Leonardo Herrmann's time is good enough for 9th place. That's the 5th best of the challenge drivers. He'll be disappointed with that. And it looks as though Fabian Taraborelli's best lap has also been deleted for track limits as Matthias Roque goes up into 3rd position. Matthias Roque in challenge sport goes straight into 3rd position now. So we've got 3 different drivers in the top 3 with 3 different classes. We've got a challenge, we've got a rookie, and we've got a sport in the top 3. And this is Chavez. I wonder if he's just trying to finish the lap cleanly, so he's got 2 to choose from here. Yep, well, I thought for a moment that was going to be Chavez's time deleted for track limits, but no, it is Taraborelli that we already mentioned as Chavez goes through on a 1:41.6. My goodness, even quicker. So Caio Chavez leaves pole position without doubt as he sets 2 lap times quicker than Daniel Newman. At least one of those surely will stand as, goodness me, sliding all over the place on the qualifying lap there for Caio Castro. So Caio Castro really struggling in the Coiner PokerStars car. So as he comes through, it's going to be a very tough one for him because he's currently sat in 10th position and he does not improve. Well, what a strange qualifying session then, as we've got a plethora of challenge and sport drivers in the top 10, with on the front row of the grid alongside Caio Chavez is Daniel Newman from the rookie category. So a pole position outright. Well, that would have been something. So the competitors go through and finish off the run, but Caio Chavez, that man, has pulled out not 1 but 2 laps quick enough to go to the top spot in time qualifying. Excellent work then from Caio Chavez in the peg card machine. Very good work indeed, and not easy to produce that kind of performance, it has to be said. So very tricky times then for Daniel Newman, who thought for a moment there, I might just pull off a rookie pole, you know. Sorry, Daniel, that will have to wait until at least the next round of the championship at Interlagos. But certainly for Sadaglaita, oh no, well, hang on a minute. I say he's going to have to wait for a rookie pole until the next round. Well, not necessarily, because he might be able to put it together in Q2. So we finish off Q1. That is the end of Q1 for the category drivers in Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge. Now we do it all again for qualifying 2. That's the men's oil car. That's the one that belongs to Matthias Roque. do get your questions and comments into us. We always like to chat with people and see how they're enjoying things live in the championship. It's always been very exciting. Great to see so many competitors coming in and having a very nice time of it. Fabio Loco was cheering for Yosemar Junior and Daniel Newman. Well, he's done you proud, second on the grid for race 1. But a very good job as well from Matthias Roque in the men's oil car, the fastest of the drivers in Sprint Challenge Sport. He's happy with the sport pole, 3rd position overall as well. So that gives him a very exciting race. But Caio Chavez gets out of the car. Yes! Pole position. Well, that doesn't need much translating, does it? I don't think Caio Chavez expected that after the pace from yesterday. I think that's a one word that you don't need too much translation for. Vamos! No worries at all from Caio Chavez. That one means a lot to him because yesterday the pace was almost nowhere compared to today. So I think he's got every reason to be very happy indeed with the fact that it's come to him this Thursday morning. And a very unusual race timetable here because we've got qualifying 1 and 2 today and then race 1 later this afternoon, then race 2 tomorrow before we go testing for the endurance on Saturday. And then we have qualifying on Sunday morning, followed by the 300 kilometers itself on Sunday afternoon. And that is going to be one hell of a race, let me tell you. So a very, very superb run from Caio Chavez. And the peg card driver, pole position. That one means a lot to him. Always great to have the supporters close by. Excellent stuff. A massive thank you as well to Marelia Pena. Hello to Mari Pena, who's been very flattering on the comments on YouTube. Flattery gets you everywhere. Thank you. So let's do it all again, shall we? Straight into the action for Q2. And so the drivers from Carrera Cup Rookie venture out onto the course for the 2nd time. And now, of course, we know what sort of lap times to expect because we've been able to completely smash through those barriers that were set yesterday. The lap times coming in very rapidly indeed. We now have the classification official from Q1. Pole position, Marcel Muller, 1:38.945 ahead of Christian Hahn and Antonella Bassani, 3rd position. Much better from her this weekend so far. Great to see her doing such a good job. Thiago Vivacqua still strong. Race winner this season, of course. 4th position, though. He'll want more from that. Miguel Paludo, Lucas Salas, and the ever-impressive Matias Caparato. Pole position in rookie went the way once again of Leonardo Sanchez in front of Silvio Modestoni. And in Carrera Sport, pole position went to young Alcif Feldmanito, or Lightning McQueen, as of course he runs in the colour scheme of. I wonder what the Portuguese for Lightning McQueen actually is. Do they call him the same thing in Portugal? Answers on a postcard, please. You guys will know that better than I will. 8 minutes to go then in Q2, and it's run exactly the same way as it is for race 1. But this will set the grid for tomorrow morning's race rather than this afternoon's. That race has already been set with pole position in the 3 categories going the way of Marcel Muller, Alcif Benito, and Leonardo Sanchez. Now it's time for those drivers to go for pole position for race 2, which will be tomorrow morning. So there is Bruno Campos getting himself up to speed. Now the times that they set earlier, 1:40.3 for Alcif Benito, 1:40.66 for Lini Perez, 1:40.7 for Miguel Mariotti. Those are the top 3 times in sport. In rookie, Leonardo Sanchez got a 1:42.21, Modestoni got a 1:42.29, and Bruno Campos got a 1:42.88. So that shows you the kind of times they're looking for in qualifying 2. There is Vanya Pontes in the D4U car. No teams, as I mentioned before, in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. It's just every race driver doing their best and going out on their own and enjoying the battles out on the course. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, do get them into us. We'll try our best to pick up on them. Tell us who you're rooting for and what you think of your favoured driver's performance. We're more than happy to get those messages out to them. We know they'll be watching back later. So all of the contenders getting themselves dialed in and ready. Takes about 2.5 to 3 laps really for these tyres to really do what they should be doing on fast laps in qualifying. So you just have to give them that little bit of a grace period. But certainly the contenders giving us so much gusto and determination. Vanya Pontes already leaning on the angles. Leonardo Sanchez, his first banker, by the way, is a 1:44.4. That's 2.2 away. 1:44.2, sorry, a 1:44.2, which is 2 seconds, slower than his best from earlier. There is Silvio Modestoni in the Capricornio car. So Silvio Modestoni looking to overturn things in the battle for pole position in rookie. Modestoni only missed out on pole position in Q1 by 84 thousandths of a second. If he can find a 1/10 of a second on his rival Leonardo Sanchez in Q2, it'll be him on pole and not his opponent. There's Eric Santos. Silvio Modestoni really starting to put the pressure now on Leonardo Sanchez. Sector times need to be strong. Vanya Pontes sets a 20.2 in the first sector. Also a first sector time similar from Marco Pisani and from Silvio Modestoni. So here we go. The battle for the rookie pole in race 2 tomorrow is already alive and kicking. Drivers putting in a stellar effort here. 1:42.2 is what we can expect to see for pole position here at Estoril in the rookie class. Certainly what we saw earlier on, it might be slightly slower as the circuit has now had a lot more rubber go down onto it and it's heating up a little bit, so the circuit might be a little bit slower than before. But there is the UBS car of Leonardo Sanchez. 1:41.893, forget what I said, because they have gone quicker already. 1:41.8 for Leonardo Sanchez, that's 0.4 of a second quicker than he managed earlier on. As we now keep an eye on Edoardo Minossi. Edoardo Minossi in the Sterling car. Looking to try and find that little bit more time. Careful, you don't want to overrun those curbs. We saw a few times getting disallowed in the earlier sessions. You can't afford to run the gauntlet. Silvio Modestoni, 1:41.74. Goodness me, even quicker than Leonardo Sanchez and half a second quicker than he managed earlier. So Modestoni really bouncing back in style. He wants more. There's Sanchez, now second in rookie. 3.25 minutes to go here. And every driver knows they've only got limited opportunities here to make the use of these tyres. Once you start your push lap, that's it. You've got to keep going and see how much the car will actually give you. But that'll be tough for Modestoni to lose now. Sanchez is 0.147 back. So let's see what happens as the drivers continue to make progress. Modestoni, pole position, but here comes Leonardo Sanchez, looking very strong. 19.9 in Sector 1, 49.7 in Sector 2. Is it good enough? No, 1:41.9. He does not improve. But Modestoni might be about to. 19.9 Sector 1, 49.0 Sector 2. He's flying. Modestoni could absolutely smash his own best as he comes off the final hairpin. Down the main straight. 1:41.7 to beat. Is he going to get there? It's going to be tight. Wow, 1:40.64. Where did that lap time come from? Absolutely extraordinary from Silvio Modestoni. He doesn't go a little bit quicker. He destroys his time. Absolutely incredible. Track limits for the 11 there of Flavio Champal. So that time will be deleted. But can you believe the pace from Silvio Modestoni? He finds a full second more. 1:40.645. That has completely stunned everybody. Bruno Campos, by the way, has gone into second place. And Moristoni is going quicker again. 19.9 for the first sector. That is pretty much exactly what he did in sector 1. But I cannot believe Silvio Moristoni found a whole second more than he did previously. That's confidence. That's what that is. Absolutely amazing. I mean, let's not forget that in qualifying earlier, he did a 1:42.2, and here he is on a 1:40.6. That is monstrous. That takes some incredible kind of talent to find that sort of speed. Absolutely amazing. So now we're going to get to see if Bruno Campos can improve, but I'm not sure he's going to get the opportunity. Sat behind Eric Santos. And that's going to make Bruno Campos a very unhappy camper indeed. He's going to have to go round the outside of Eric Santos if he wants to keep his foot in for the lap. And he won't get the chance to. He almost goes on the gravel. He's infuriated, sat behind Eric Santos. What are you doing? Get out of the way. Don't you know I'm on a hot lap? Well, Eric Santos will be saying, well, yeah, but so am I. Bruno Campos does not improve. It is a 1:42.0, unsurprisingly. But even stuck behind Eric Santos, that is still quicker than they were going this morning. Leonardo Sanchez has responded with a slow lap to then embed into a quick one. But his first sector time is still a 20.0. Moristoni, by the way, has done a 19.8 for the first sector. His time was disallowed. Okay, so his time has been disallowed. A 1:40.6. He must have kicked up so much in terms of track limits. Yeah, there is the confirmation. His third lap time is deleted for track limits. But he still managed to find a 1:41.3 on his next lap. That's still a quarter of a second quicker than Campos. Minossi breaks into third place on his last lap with a 1:41.863 as he takes the checkered flag. As we watch the 12, that is the leopard print of Marco Pisani. So Marco Pisani, that's the Kim Kardashian special, if you like. The number 12, making its name through with the leopard print in gold insignia. Marco Pisani, not really looking likely to improve on this lap. He's going to do a 1:42.9. Yeah, it's not going to be faster than his best. As Leonardo Sanchez comes through, fourth quickest. That is not where Leonardo Sanchez expected to be. Well, Moristoni has bounced back with a 1:40.5. So he's found the second that he was told he wasn't allowed to have. And he's now got it back again. Absolutely incredible from Moristoni. A full second faster than anybody else. There is Eduardo Minossi. Good run from the Sterling Porsche. Third position. He outbeats Leonardo Sanchez at the end there. As Vanier Pontes will lose his last lap due to track limits, but it wasn't his quickest lap anyway, so it doesn't matter. But what an astonishing run. And look at that. He is punching his fist in the car. Eduardo Minossi goes through, as too does Vanier Pontes. But Silvio Moristoni is jubilant in the cockpit of his car. And I do not blame him. A full second quicker than Bruno Campos and Eduardo Minossi. That could put him in the top 10 overall. That is an extraordinary bit of pace from Silvio Moristoni to do a 1:40.5. Take into account his lap time earlier was a 1:42.2. So he's gone almost 2 seconds quicker than he did earlier on. That's absolutely incredible. As Mari Pena points out on our YouTube stream, Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil is so much fun. You are not wrong, Mari. Just an astonishing array of talent displayed once again here. Absolutely phenomenal pace from Silvio Moristoni. I would never have expected him to find a second on everybody else. This is going to be a bit of a celebration and a half when he gets out of the Capricornio car, number 2. Just amazing. Where did he find a full second? That is absolutely baffling. But it shows you just how quickly Silvio Modestoni's confidence is growing in that car. You've got to remember that when you go into the rookie category, it's the beginning of your racing journey. You're stepping up to the big time. And having been a sprint challenge driver earlier in his career, Modestoni is gaining in confidence and in mentality and in strength every time. But it's laps like that that really showcase to you, I should be doing this. This isn't just a passing hobby. This isn't just a craze or a midlife crisis. I've got the pace to do this. I am a good driver. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And it's great to see. So, the sunshine over Estoril continuing to give us an amazing show. Hello to everybody, wherever you are watching, including all the way from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We've got one of our regular fans tuning in. Great to see you. You have tuned in at exactly the right moment because the battle for pole position in Q2 is going to be fantastic here in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. And if you stick around, you'll still get the Porsche Sprint Challenge Q2 as well. Motorsport on a Thursday. Yes, please, with jam on top. So out onto the circuit will go the drivers in Carrera Sport. So these are the second fastest group of drivers in theory, although from that lap from Silvio Modestoni, he might actually go quicker than all of them. Right onto the circuit go the drivers then in the sport category. And there is Linu Perez lining up to be sent out onto the circuit. He, of course, is one of those drivers in the sport category who will be gunning for not just the sport pole, but maybe overall pole position. Look at the joy and jubilation down in pit lane for Silvio Modestoni. That is what it means when you gain 1.7 seconds in qualifying pace in the space of an hour and a half. That is extraordinary from Silvio Modestoni. What a performance, what a drive. So as Silvio Modestoni goes and speaks to Ms. Diaz for the Portuguese television stream, we here on the international English language stream continue on onto the circuit for the competitors in sport. And there is one of the favourites for the pole position in sport category, Linu Perez. And out onto the circuit, all of the competitors in the category go, including Relâmpago McQueen. I've just been informed that is the Portuguese for Lightning McQueen. Thank you to Capital Car Care Brazil for pointing that one out to us. Obrigado. I really appreciate it. So Relâmpago McQueen gets out onto the circuit. That is Alsu Feldman-Nito. Keep an eye on the number 95 in its Rust-eze colour scheme from the first of the Disney Pixar Cars movies. If you haven't seen them, first of all, where have you been for the last 2 decades? And second of all, you've got to find a child, either a nephew, a godchild, a niece, or start your own family and get your own excuse in the grid there for the Disney Pixar trilogies. You've got to do it. It's absolutely amazing motorsport on your screen in CGI. And who'd have thought it would be that entertaining? It really is. That's the Century out on the course, the 100 of Sebe Malucelli. Brilliant onboard camera here with Linu Perez. Lovely to get the side-on view of him in the cockpit. And great as well, pats on the back to the Porsche Carrera Cup team on the camera crew for coming up with a few more dynamic shots. So continuing to battle around the course. Nina watching back home in the UK pointing out, watching this is making me really want to go and watch a race abroad. I don't blame you. There is a certain something magical about watching races when you're overseas. It almost feels naughty when you rock through those gates. I'm here to watch cars go round in circles. I've got on a plane and everything just to go and watch cars whiz round and round in circles. Is there anything better to do with your time? I can't think of anything. And as Marty Pena points out, if qualifying is this exciting, imagine the race. So Ruman Simkovic in the number 80, that's the mutant Porsche. Didn't see too much of him in Q1, but the jaws of the teeth over the air take indicate a man who's got a real zest of life I love the colour schemes on these Porsche Carrera cars. It almost feels, in this championship, a little bit like the monster truck of motorsport on the circuits here, because these Latin American talents love to paint these cars in such amazing ways. It's almost like the Porsche Nacho Libre of Porsche Carrera Cup. Look at that, the jaws rampant on the monster of Roman Zimkovic's Mutant. Down the straight, what's the banker lap? Well, he's put in a 1:57.0 just to warm the tyres up a bit. Still plenty more to come once he's actually up to speed. There is the 51, that's the on-fly car belonging to Israel Salmen. Now, he was the rookie champion last year, had an absolute canter in the on-fly Mamba car. So we'll see what he's able to produce as he continues to make good work of things. Israel Salmen wanting to get himself up into the sharp end nice and early. Some good performances already in the bank. Back up to speed. Everybody looking for an exciting lap out of the course. We're going to have to find something special, even to knock on the door of Silvio Modestoni, who's beaten his best over the 2 sessions by 1.7 seconds. He's given something that any racing driver on this grid would give their eye teeth to do. You said to any Formula One driver, you can go out there and beat your best qualifying time by 1.7 seconds, they'd bite your hand off. Rodrigo Melo, I think he's going to set the first fast time of the session, 1:41.3. That lays down the banker. Well, Israel Salmen has managed to get that time in as well, a 1:41.0, as there is Lino Perez now starting to get the lap times to be competitive. Let's ride on board. Let's listen in. One of the best camera views in motorsport on board with Lino Perez. That 360-degree camera inside the roll cage of the treble 8 Carrera Sport car. As Lino Perez is still warming up the tyres. He's not going for the hot lap yet. And we actually heard a little bit of deceleration out of turn 5. So we know that this is not his quick lap. Alcifer Manito, or Relambago McQueen, as we now know, managing to get himself into second position overall with a 1:40.85. There he is. There is Relambago McQueen. Lightning McQueen to you and me. Alsu Feldmanito, who also races in single-seaters, has been competing regularly in the Euro Cup 3 Championship this year. And he's currently being hunted down by Seba Malucelli. Now, Alsu Feldmanito, what is his first sector time? 19.819. That's quicker than Moristoni set in the rookie category. Now, normally, that would be fairly easy going, but Moristoni has gone ridiculously quicker than he did in his previous qualifying run. So this is actually going to be quite tough for the sport drivers to eclipse. Look at the challenge from Malucelli, hunting down Alsu Feldmanito, and that's a very good tactic for Seba Malucelli. Find a driver to race against and really push it. But both of them are running the gauntlet on track limits there. I've got a feeling that both of them may get this time disallowed if it stands. So Malucelli definitely going quicker than Alsu Feldmanito on this lap. 49.2 as Miguel Mariotti goes second. Miguel Mariotti on a 1:40.84. So he goes second for the moment. I want to see how that compares to their own qualifying times from earlier, because I think they're going quicker than they were doing earlier as well. Well, Alsu Feldmanito did a 1:40.3 earlier, so he's actually going slower than he did before. A 1:40.56 puts him up, but Seba Malucelli 1:40.1. He smashes the time. And Marcos Regadas goes quicker than Moristoni as well. So that's 3 of them having all managed to go quicker than the time set by Moristoni, as Regadas comes through second quickest now. So they are definitely starting to lap quicker than they did earlier. Alsu Feldmanito's pole time, from before was a 1 minute 40.3. The next best was a 1:40.6. So we're now knocking on the door of half a second quicker. And whoa, off the road goes the 21, Amiga Mariotti. Mariotti really pushing the Porsche hard. The Grand 7 machine just found a little whiff of gravel there. Doesn't want to do that too often because that really will chuck away a decent lap. So there's still a little bit more to find out of the final hairpin. Pushing, oh, into the barriers. That is Francisco Horta. Francisco Horta in the 77 has gone off there. So that's anybody currently starting a fast lap that's not going to get it completed in time. Oh, and another spinner. That's the Wilde car. Goodness me, 2 spins on the final flying lap. That is the 83 that's gone around. I think that's Marco Billi. So Marco Billi, who was already struggling to find pace, several lap times ruined there, I'm afraid, as Mariotti just squeezes in a run to third place at the end. Arcifel Manito could not improve. He had to back down. Malucelli finishes off on a 1:40.1. If that time gets disallowed, he's still on a 1:40.43. Here's Linu Perez, who's got a clear track around him now. I wanted to stay on board with him there. But Linu Perez has got a spun-out Marco Billi to pass, so he's not going to improve, and that's really important for Linu Perez to have found a clean bit of racetrack. He's 4th position. He's not going to go quicker, as far as I can tell, unless he's been able to keep his foot in. Linu Perez crosses the line. No, 1:40.56, and it looks as though track limits has been exceeded there for the number 29, Rodrigo Melo, so his time's going to get disallowed. Here's what happened to Francisco. Far too much throttle. Caught the back of the gravel, spat him out. And the Pirate has really been spat out to the 7 seas. So this is the man with skull and crossbones and that squid on the front end. So Francisco Horta, the squid, I'm afraid, has sunk to the bottom of the ocean before the qualifying session ends. And there is Relampago McQueen, Lightning McQueen to you and me. Arcifel Manito finishes up 5th position in the end. So it's not going to be a pair of pole positions for Arcifel Manito. It's just going to be one. I'm not quite sure why he's pushing, because the session's over. Well, Francisco Horta is trying to get the Jolly Roger started again, as the Rusty's car, Arcifel Manito, is bringing that car back in. A real shame that we don't have his father out on the circuit these days as well, in the Tag Heuer car. Arcifel Manito coming in very quickly for a coming in lap. I wonder if he's driving angry that his last lap was held up there. You do get the emotions bubble over occasionally when drivers feel that they've been unjustly robbed of something. So big difficulty at the end there. But Linu Perez will have to cope with 4th position. That will have to do for the treble 8. Love this camera angle. This takes me back to the days of watching the British Touring Car Championship when I was a boy in 1995, when they put on some amazing camera angles. I remember they put one camera hidden underneath one of the wheel arches, and there was the most amazing viewpoint of watching these cars banging into each other at speed from underneath one of the wheel arches. It was such an amazing decision by the camera crew, and so was that, to put that 360-degree camera mounted on Linu Perez's roll cage to give you a real sense of what it's like on board. And so we've now got just one session left, one class left to run in Q2 of the Carrera Cup, and that's going to be the ultimate run for pole position. So Sebu Malucelli picks up the sport pole, but it's the overall pole we're interested in. Marcel Muller, of course, got the overall pole position in Carrera Cup earlier on for Q1. That was ahead of Christian Hahn and Antonella Bassani. So with a 1:38.9 to beat in Marcel Muller, who got 0.7 of a second more than his best opponent. That's a big gap to try and find. But Christian Hahn and Antonella Bassani were only a few hundredths of a second between each other for second and third. The marshals there just making sure that the little bit of debris that's been kicked up around the circuit has now been cleared. There's going to be a slight pause because, of course, they've got to recover Marco Billi and Francisco Horta from the side of the road as they spun off in their final qualifying laps. We're going to see a replay of Seba Malucelli in behind Alcifel Manito, I think. So is this going to be a replay of a lap gone wrong or something else? This is the duel between the two of them during qualifying. And of course, Alcifel Manito accidentally ended up proving to be a bit of a tow for Seba Malucelli during qualifying. So that has obviously really benefited Malucelli, but it's really hampered Alcifel Manito, who essentially ended up being an aerodynamic aid for the Travelex car. So clearly not what Alcifel Manito had in mind. You can see the debris out on the circuit there, though. Something obviously fell off Marco Billi's car when he spun the car around. But I can tell you that the session is getting underway in Carrera Cup. So the 7 superb superstars, the Magnificent 7, will head out onto the circuit for the last time in qualifying. So Q2 gets underway for the Carrera Cup drivers. Matías Camperato, Marcel Müller, Antonella Bassani, Lucas Salas, Miguel Paludo, Christian Hahn, and Thiago Vavacqua. So there is Matías Camperato, the 18-year-old, who's rather hoping that this time he manages to find some speed. He didn't really have any at all in the first session. But then Matías Camperato is still getting used to life in the world of the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. He's a Christmas Day baby, born in 2006, 18 years of age from Sao Paulo, raced for Brazil in the Motorsport Games in the F4 category, and of course is the reigning F4 Brazil champion, runner-up in the year before that, and making the switch over this year to Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil as a rookie in the senior category. So very impressive how he's been able to put in such an amazing performance so soon in his career. There's Marcel Müller, the man who has over a dozen victories to his name now. 8th season in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. He's the reigning champion, but he's almost impossible now to become the champion this year, as he's had 3 race victories taken away from him in 2025 while leading due to a puncture. Absolutely unprecedented. Race 1, round 1, puncture while leading at Velocida. Round 2, race 1, puncture while leading at Velocida again. Round 3, race 1, puncture while leading it Interlagos. Genuinely cannot believe that I'm talking about that in such a context, but that is exactly what happened to him. There's Thiago Vavacqua. He's a man who's already taken a couple of victories in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. He's also raced in the TCR World Tour, TCR South America, Stock Car Brazil. Plenty of great opportunities for him to showcase his talent. He's another December baby, although he wasn't born on Christmas Day, unlike Matías Camperato. Miguel Paludo, he really is the Michael Schumacher of this category. 42 years of age from Porto Alegre, has won over 40 races in his career. Made his debut in the Porsche Carrera Cup of Brazil all the way back in 2008. He's almost been here as long as we have. And it's pretty impressive that his stock just continues to remain at the peak. If he has a bad season, he shakes it off and he bounces back to come and get a better one. It's just astonishing. He comes back so motivated year after year after year. And it is wonderful to see what he's been able to do in 17 years of racing. He's won 40 races, more than 40 races, in fact, over his career. Such an amazing talent. And the Brandt Porsche driver continuing to elevate his stock. Now, let's talk about the lap times from Q1, because, of course, the pole position went to Marcel Müller on a 1:38.9. The next quickest lap was a 1:39.6. Well, that's only half a second quicker than Seba Malucelli's just done. So that shows you how difficult it's going to be. And an indication as well of how impressive Silvio Moristoni's rookie lap was, because he did a 1 minute 40.571. That's only 0.38 slower than Malucelli's pole time in sport. And that puts him P6, whereas the next best rookie is Bruno Campos, all the way back in 17th. Into turn one goes both Marcel Muller and Antonella Bassani. There is the 70. That is, of course, Lucas Salas in the Wish Porsche. Looking to try and find that ultimate fast lap time. But the time to beat from earlier is a 1:38.9 of Marcel Muller. Anybody else getting close to a 1:39.6 would be pretty impressive, but everybody's been going quicker than their session earlier on. So it's certainly a positive start to proceedings for the moment. And there is the 19-year-old lady, Antonella Bassani, who is having the season of her life transferring from the Porsche Sprint Challenge, which she became champion of in 2023 at the tender age of 17. Now as a 19-year-old, she's in the main Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Everybody expects big things from her, and she's really starting to deliver on that promise. She isn't actually going to be competing this weekend in the endurance category on Sunday, sadly, because her teammate Nicolas Costa was unavailable. So she's elected to only compete in the Porsche Carrera Cup this time, rather than the endurance race as well. So Antonella Bassani purely focusing on this. And I actually think that gives her a chance to really go for the top spot, because she's not spreading herself far over. She's only focusing on these two races. So it's going to be an interesting one for the contenders to continue battling on with. But still, the battle very close indeed for the contenders as they make good work of the situation around them. Trying to find the pace. Matthias Camperato has made the first big jump. So his lap time gauntlet is a 1:41.13. Still looking for a time that's comparable to a 1:38.9 that was set by Marcel Muller originally. There is Matthias Camperato in the Blue Dog Porsche. No teams, as I mentioned before. They all race in one big team, as it were, and they're all operated the cars by Porsche Brasil directly. So an excellent run so far from Matthias Camperato. Now he's on the properly fast lap. Sector time 19.6 for the first sector. That's really quick from Matthias Camperato. Whatever was wrong earlier isn't as bad now, because he's actually matching the first sector pace of Marcel Muller. Antonella Bassani's not far off either. 19.7 from her. Similar to Christian Hahn and Miguel Paludo. Tiago Vivacqua is on a 19.5 in the first sector. This is going to be a monstrous battle for pole. It could go anybody's way in Carrera Cup. Marcel Muller found an amazing lap earlier, but it looks like everybody's figured out how he did it, because now they're all desperate to get into the cookie jar. Matthias Camperato throws down the gauntlet, and it's a 1:39.5. Okay, so that's really good from Camperato. That's almost a second quicker than he went earlier. Here comes Marcel Muller. What does he do? 1:38.941. That's only 0.004 of a second quicker than he managed this morning. Absolutely amazing. So here comes Miguel Paludo as into second place. We have Camperato. Salas is third. Bassani is only fourth with a 1:40.15. So she's got to find some time then in the third sector. That's where she seems to be weak. Here comes Miguel Paludo. What can he do? Third. Well, Paludo can't go particularly quick. 1:39.6. And Tiago Vivacqua, fourth position. Well, that lap that was going superbly seems to have fallen apart. Here comes Christian Hahn, second. Christian Hahn second on a 1:39.5. So that's a tenth of a second quicker than he managed as well. Well, even Marcel Muller can only find 0.004 of a second more. But that really shows you how incredibly strong Marcel Muller is and how consistent he is as well. Q1, 1:38.945. Q2, 1:38.941. That is amazing. So very close indeed here. boxing this lap, pointing out the number 26, Christian Hahn, is beautiful. It certainly is. The Blau Porsche looking absolutely resplendent. Here's Antonella Bassani. What has she been doing? She's dropped to 7th place in the times. 48.8 for the second split, though. So that's definitely quicker after a 19.6 sector 1. So Bassani may not be staying in P7 for much longer if she's got a tiny third sector, and it looks like she has. This is going to be much better for Antonella Bassani. What can she do? P6 in the end. That third sector is still a bit of a weak spot. So a 31.4 in the third sector. She needed more than that, as Marcel Muller cannot go quicker than he's gone. He's been warming up to another lap. And no change for Vivacqua. Here comes Miguel Paludo. Currently sat in P4. What can he do? Miguel Paludo, second. Brilliant lap. 1:39.40 for Paludo. Here comes Christian Hahn. He was in second place. The checkered flag about to pull out. He crosses the line. What can Christian Hahn do? Nothing more. He remains in third position. And Antonella Bassani's last lap time has been deleted for track limits. What a shame. So Antonella Bassani dropping back to P7 again, I'm afraid. Matthias Camperato remains fourth position. The 18-year-old youngest driver on this grid, working hard to put himself further up. What are his sector times like? 19.7 for the first, 48.5 for the second. So Camperato might be about to put himself on the front row. The teenager really putting in a pace now. Final sector. Running through the final turn, the back end starting to travel, but he collects it up nicely. Pushing the limit now. Has Camperato still got the speed after that little twitch? Fourth position. And that's where he remains. He does not improve. A 1:39.6. So here comes Marcel Muller. He does not need to go any quicker. It's been a fantastic run as the Fabian Petrus team are just waiting for him to boil down pit lane. He bails out. He doesn't need to go quicker. And he will rock up to the front row of the grid for race 2 tomorrow on the front row of the grid with Miguel Paludo. Christian Hahn is third. Matthias Camperato is fourth, along with Thiago Vivacqua. And then Antonella Bassani, who improves on her last lap to a 1:39.7 ahead of Lucas Salas. So there we are. A fascinating battle, but Marcel Muller will not be beaten. They'll get closer to him, but they still can't vanquish him. A double pole position for Marcel Muller. I love these scenes down in pit lane. There's always a lot more emotion to bubble over in a Latin American pit lane than in any other pit lane around the world. These drivers, these mechanics, these engineers, they wear their heart on their sleeve, and the emotions always run high. And for us, that gives us plenty of great television. Miguel Paludo out of the car. The legend is back on the front row of the grid again. And this is, of course, the weekend where he could potentially clinch the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil Championship title. So it's a big one for him to be on the front row of the grid for the second race tomorrow. Excellent work, though, by this man. Fantastic effort, yet again, from Marcel Muller. Very tough stuff indeed. So as Marcel Muller goes to the top spot, not for the first time this year, not for the first time this weekend, he's put in an excellent performance there, as everybody is ready for an exciting showdown then in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. And of course, in the championship fight, it's going to be mighty tough up at the sharp end of the dais. Got to remember just how tight it's going to be up in the front end. But in the championship fight, Miguel Paludo currently has 173 points to Christian Hahn on 149. Thiago Vivacqua has 116. Lucas Salas has 111. Matthias Camperato with 102. There's the pole position trophy for Marcel Muller. Double pole, of course, for him. But such has been the bad luck of Marcel Muller's season that he's only 11th in the standings on 80 points. He cannot become this year's champion. And to be fair to Christian Hahn, he really needs an amazing 4 races over Miguel Paludo if he's going to become champion this season. But Paludo did such a fantastic job of just staying in the top 10 over the weekend in Portimao. He didn't have to win any of the races. He got a 3rd and a 4th place, which of course shot him up the table in terms of points scored. He was on 132. He managed to get himself to 173. So only picking up 41 points over that weekend. But that's all you need to do when you've got a decent lead. You don't need to push yourself too hard or stretch yourself too thin. You just need to bank points in and keep it nice and tidy. So the driver of the weekend last time out, Marcel Muller, who bagged 50 points in the championship last time to more than double his previous tally, has now come away with a pair of pole positions for this weekend. Just to showcase to everybody, he is still the top banana on the day. Well, there's still a tiny bit of qualifying left because we've got another 20 minutes of on-track running now. We've got 10 minutes of the Sprint Challenge Q2 in the rookie category first of all, and then we've got the Sprint Challenge Q2 for Sport and Challenge as we bid for another pole position. And we're bidding for another bit of history. We came so close in the Sprint Challenge qualifying earlier to a rookie driver, get this, a rookie driver getting on pole position. That barely ever happens in Porsche Brazil. But this man, Daniel Newman, is digging deep to see if he can find a little bit more. So far, with those clouds overhead peeking in, it now looks as though the circuit's considerably quicker than it was earlier on. And as a result, Daniel Newman may be able to find the confidence within himself to pull the lap times up even faster than they were earlier. But he only missed out on pole position by a fraction earlier on. So we are told that there's been a correction in the classification for Q1 of Carrera Cup. There were a couple of laps that were deleted for track limits. The lap times deleted were as follows. Flavio Champao, the 15, also got time deleted. That was Leonardo Sanchez, interestingly enough. And then there was also a time deleted for the 99. That is the car belonging to Manuel Pontes. The 72, that's Antonella Bassani. She had her best lap time deleted. That dropped her to 3rd position, so she could have been even quicker. And the 26, Christian Hahn, also had a lap time deleted, but it didn't affect their final results. So it was just a little bit of a clarification issue needed there for a couple of little moments, but nothing majorly dramatic, and certainly nothing that affected things at the front end of the field. So it's just more housekeeping than anything else. So now we're going to get to see what will happen this time. Daniel Newman came so close to getting a pole position last time, and there is a genuine chance that it could happen this time, because of course if the cars are getting quicker, eventually there's a peak that you find, but if the circuit is quicker than it was before, there is a chance that Daniel Newman may be able to find an even faster time and therefore stretch the limits of what he can do and get a rookie pole position. Are we going to see something pretty special here this morning? I say this morning, it's just become afternoon here at Estoril. So after setting a very quick time this morning, Daniel Newman is now trying to find a lap time that could give him pole position overall, not just in the rookie category. I think it's fair to say that if anybody else takes pole position in rookie, it's because something's gone very wrong indeed in car 21. But Daniel Newman fancies his chances at pole, and so he's going to go for it. I know that Fabio Loco is cheering him on big time, and he got very near to watching his man get a pole position in the earlier session. So let's see if in these 6 minutes Daniel Newman can find something even more special than that. Turn 1. Such a difficult circuit this, because they don't really get a lot of driving miles around this place. Got to forget that this is quite a long distance away from where they usually go racing. It's a very difficult circuit to gauge by the battles here. So just to give you a bit of an idea as to where things currently are in the grand scheme of things, it is a fascinating challenge for all of the drivers out on the course just to even get here in the first place. And there are times when people realize that it is actually a little bit too difficult. But the several thousands of miles they've had to fly over for this little Portuguese holiday. Daniel Newman really pushing it, trying to find that little bit extra. But it does seem to be that Daniel Newman is trying to find that little bit extra right from the outset. 1:45.7 is the banker that he's set, but this is going to be the first of the properly quick laps. Daniel Newman over the line. What can he do for his first flyer? 1:41.9. Bring it on. Game on. So Daniel Newman right up there on a 1:41.97. Throws down the gauntlet to everybody else. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, says Daniel Newman. And the time he set earlier, don't forget, was a 1:42.0. So he's already quicker than he was earlier, and that was only his first flying lap. Here comes the 18, Ricardo Zilberman. 1:47.2 for him. Don't expect him to be at the front end of the field. He is still one of the drivers learning their craft. So Daniel Newman's first flying lap is already 9/10 of a second quicker than William Araujo. Then Rafa Brocchi, Fernando Oruda, Claudio Chimiao, Claudio Reina, Rafael Bernardes, and Ricardo Zilberman. On a spin. That is the 100. That's Bernardes. So Rafael Bernardes trying to rejoin, but hopefully not straight into the path of Ricardo Zilberman. So that will not be a stoppage, thank goodness. I think ultimately that's only going to be a couple of lap times impeded there, rather than anything more untoward than that. We might just get the chance to see that pirouette in the replay. Fernando Arruda out there this time playing games with Claudio Chimiao. And Chimiao doesn't appear to be too happy again with following Fernando Arruda. Of course, you can follow another car in qualifying if you choose to. There's no team orders here because there are no teams. But you have to calculate how close to the car in front you're going to run, because this is a circuit of two halves. Once you get to here, running up to the Parabolica, you can really pick up the slipstream of the car in front. But you then negate that through the rest of the lap, because it's very hard to run in the dirty air of the other drivers. 1:41 for, oh, and around goes Chimiao. Claudio Chimiao out of the final turn, loses the back end, trying to stay with Fernando Arruda, and that's exactly what I was saying about how difficult it is to follow in the dirty air of the car behind. Now, Chimiao needs to get off the racing line there, and he's thrown gravel all over the circuit. Is he going to bail and come into the pits? Yes, he is. Let's see how he did it. Follows in the wheel tracks. Whoa, the back end overtakes the front. Claudio Chimiao. So easily done. A big tag snapper off the final hairpin. Goes through the gravel and returns to the circuit, having thrown quite a bit of gravel over the circuit in the process. So a few of the drivers have got to be careful on the remainder of this session. But there you go. Daniel Newman's time is now 1:41.57, and that is quicker than Caio Chavez managed earlier. So the fastest lap time of anybody this weekend so far in Sprint Challenge is Daniel Newman once again. the 99, Claudio Reina. Let's see if Reina's got anything in the tank to try and take on the run for pole position. So this is going to be intriguing to see if anybody's got a little bit more in the tank. So let's see if it's going to be just that little bit tougher for Claudio Reina or a little bit easier in race 2. Well, that's much better. Second place for Claudio Reina. Oh, and off the road goes Newman. Daniel Newman trying to go quicker. He's managed to get a 1:41.3 though, goodness me. A 1:41.3 for Daniel Newman, and here's how he went just a little bit too eager in a turn 2. Well, that's how you go through every single inch of that gravel trap. But Daniel Newman's chances now of getting a faster lap time than the one he's just set are minimal. But when you've gone 1:41.33, who cares? What a lap. That is absolutely astonishing again from Daniel Newman. And yet again, we have to ask, is there going to be a faster time from the sport or challenge drivers? Because he's managed to find 0.7 of a second more than he found earlier. But who's to say that Caio Chavez can do the same? I'm not sure he's got that guaranteed. So the checkered flag is out, so Daniel Newman will not be able to go quicker after his trip into the gravel trap. But it's a dominant run again to pole position for Daniel Newman, a 1:41.333. What a lap from Daniel Newman, and again the gauntlet is laid down for Caio Chavez, Matias Roque, or anybody else to get near to him in the final 10 minutes out on this circuit. Is Daniel Newman going to get the first rookie pole in Porsche Sprint Challenge for quite some considerable time? I don't think anybody managed it last year, so I would suspect that's definitely going to be a pretty special moment in the championship's history. But certainly, what a fantastic opportunity this presents for all of the contenders coming into this next battle. Over the line goes Zilberman. A 1:47.2 remains his best time, as Daniel Newman does a 1:41.33. That is a monstrous, monstrous lap time again. And Claudio Reina is second quickest ahead of Rafa Brocchi. This man, William Araujo, in the human Porsche. And then it is Fernando Arruda, Claudio Chimiao, Rafael Bernardes, and Ricardo Zilberman. But the big question now throws down to the drivers in sport and challenge. Can you find 0.7 of a second? Daniel Newman just did. So the pressure is on for the likes of Matias Roque, Caio Chavez, and anybody else in sport and challenge. They do not want to get upstaged here by a rookie. Few replays then to keep an eye on after that session, as Daniel Newman makes it 2 rookie pole positions in a row. But if he has found more time than Caio Chavez will in his second session, then there's a chance still that Daniel Newman could not just walk away with the rookie pole, but he could take the pole position trophy itself. What an opportunity. So the WSC Fios car absolutely lighting up the circuit, pushing a little too hard in the end on his final flying lap. Who knows how fast that lap could have been? That could have been even quicker still. So the contenders definitely giving us plenty to get excited about then in the closing stages. And Daniel Newman pushing the limit of that car even more than I think he was prepared to. But his lap time is still monstrous. 1:42.034 in Q1, 1:41.33 in Q2. Monstrous pace made up again, 0.7 of a second. So you've got to give him a massive amount of credit for finding that much time in essentially 90 minutes. But you can see there the marshals are having to go to work at the final turn after Claudio Chimiao's spin. It's a lot of gravel to sweep up, and that's not really going to give the drivers a fair bite at the cherry in the sport and challenge categories. So the marshals, the Orange Army, as we refer to them, will go to work. Amazing work that these guys do. It has to be said, if you are a marshal or if you know a marshal, they are the reason motorsport happens. Forget cars, forget drivers, forget race engineers, forget designers, forget sponsors, forget massive millionaire budgets. It's the marshals that make motorsport happen. Without them, we are nothing. And these guys deserve your pats on the back, your pints of beer at the end of a fantastic day, your lifts home back to the hotel or back to the railway station. I've spent some of my best motor racing weekends in my entire 14 years in this sport in the company of the marshals, and their stories, well, they could fill 1,000 books. A late check-in there from Dafa Razaka. Better late than never, but you're just in time for the final 10-minute sprint of the Sprint Challenge Q2 qualifying session there, Dafa. You've got a chance to see if Daniel Newman is going to complete the unthinkable. Can the rookie driver bag a pole position in Sprint Challenge? It's not been done for at least 2 years, and I've got a feeling that if Daniel Newman's 0.7 of a second upswing isn't matched by Caio Chavez or Matias Roque, it's going to be a very tricky battle to win. It's Shumi just checking in with us. My sim racing teammate is marshalling here today. He's got some nice trackside picks from him. That's the other great thing, because you get so close to the action in between sessions, and if your mate is holding the flag and you've got a spare 5 seconds, you can get some of the best photographs you're ever going to take in motorsport. But honestly, in the last decade and a half, some of my best mates in this sport are marshals. I've seen them go from waving flags to being judiciaries in the offices of the race circuits of this world. And these are the guys who live and breathe motorsport more than I do. They are absolutely extraordinary. They do not get the credit they deserve. They do not get the support that they should. And it's such a fantastic discipline. I wish more young people would go and do it. We need to secure the future of our sport. We've actually got one of the motorsport marshals of Great Britain tuning in. Nina says, I love the leaf blowers the marshals have here. We need them back in Blighty. That would make my job so much easier. Goodness me. We'll get down to home base, shall we? One bulk order, 12 leaf blowers for MSV. Where's Dr. Jonathan Palmer's number? I'll get on to him. We've got one 10-minute session left out on the circuit here at Estoril. The scene of where Ayrton Senna da Silva won his first Formula One Grand Prix 40 years ago for Lotus in the pouring rain in 1985. And he would go on to win an astonishing 40 more in his short 10-year career in Formula One. It's amazing to think what he did in just a decade. And these guys, well, most of them would not be racing drivers if it weren't for his legacy. Last year was a very emotional one for a Brazilian in motorsport, as we commemorated 30 years since his tragic passing. And even Yosemar Junior, one of the drivers in the paddock, actually raced last year with his car in full Senna tribute livery in the color scheme of his helmet. And I have to say, a Porsche in the color scheme of Senna's helmet is just about the sexiest Porsche I have ever seen in all 39 years I've been on this planet. So a massive obrigado to Yosemar Junior for giving us that all of last year. A shame he didn't stick with it, because as a passionate Senna fan myself, I think it is the most beautiful Porsche that this championship has probably ever seen as well. Relampago McQueen. I've learnt my first proper Portuguese word for a long time. Relampago, for those who speak English, that means lightning. And of course, Lightning McQueen himself, Alcifel Manito, has already bagged one pole position in the sport category here this weekend. That's for race 1, which is actually coming up in about 90 minutes' time. So do stick around with us, grab yourself a quick bite to eat, and then you can settle in this afternoon for a pair of fantastic races. And if you think, oh, well, it's Porsches, I've seen them on the continent. They're all right, but they're not that exciting. Oh, baby, you have not seen the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil, have you? If you know this championship of old, if you watch us week in, week out, you know, as well as I do, that in this championship, you have no idea what's coming next. Races have been won at the final bend of the final lap in this championship. One lap to the next. We can have 5 different leaders. Yes, I said it, 5 different race leaders. It happened last year in the 3rd weekend of the championship. We had 5 different race leaders in 1.5 laps, basically. The battles were extraordinary. And here, this is a circuit that the drivers don't know too well. They run the gauntlet. They push the limits. You've got Marcel Muller there, who's got 2 pole positions, still trying to make a comeback after he's picked up 3 punctures after 3 separate races where he was leading in the first race of the weekend. Absolutely extraordinary, the drama that we've already seen unfold in 2025, and we've still got 4 sprint races each to come. And so off we go then for the final 10 minutes of qualifying at Estoril 2025. It's Q2 in Sprint Challenge for the Sport and Challenge cars. They'll head out on the circuit together, and we will have an amazing battle for pole. Can anybody from these 2 classes take the pole position away from Daniel Newman? They managed to do so in the previous session. Only 1 man went quicker in the end, and that was Caio Chavez, who did a 1:41.65 compared to Daniel Newman on his 1:42.03. Now, Daniel Newman has got that time down to a 1:41.33. Can anybody gain that much time? It's going to be very tricky indeed to see how this is going to progress. But it's not easy to predict how this is going to go. A very tricky end to the season in prospect. So this could be a tough weekend in the championship with all of these amazing battles. So out onto the circuit, just building up the tension, building up the drama. Waiting for this final battle for pole position to unravel. We're going to need to see if anybody can get close. The only man who was able to topple Daniel Newman from his perch in Q1 was Caio Chavez. There is the 177, that's Lucas Locatelli. So now we need to see if there's any more time to be found from this Estoril circuit. And don't forget, we've just had a big off from Claudio Chimiao in the rookie category, and that threw a lot of gravel onto the circuit. The marshals did a fantastic job with a combination of leaf blower and sweeper broom to get it off the course. But there's always going to be 1 or 2 shards of gravel left. You can't be perfect. So we'll have to see if that's going to affect the mentality of the drivers, or if they find just going through that final turn they can't push quite as well as they hoped they might. But we'll see if Caio Chavez has what it takes to get it done again, as that was Cecilia Rebello, the other lady in the paddock. Obviously, we've talked at great length about Antonella Bassani here today, but the other lady in this championship, in the sister championship, if you like, the Sprint Challenge, is Cecilia Rebello. Very talented young lady in her own right, was an F4 Brazil race winner last year. Stepping up into the world of Porsche Brazil this year. Decided to join in with Antonella Bassani and Letizia Buffoni at the season finale of the Endurance Championship last year, when all 3 girls formed an incredible triumvirate in the Endurance Championship at the end of last season. Got the taste for Porsche Brazil and decided, you know what, I want to do this next year. There's a lot to be said for drivers who are pursuing the run up to the top level. They know how much pressure there is. They know how much work needs to go into finding the sponsor, chasing that extra level of fitness, trying to get everything together. But there's room for versatility. There's room for doing something a little bit different in your motor racing journey. There's nothing wrong with chasing the stars, but also expanding your experience and widening your horizons a little bit as a driver. Don't forget that back in the 60s and 70s, drivers used to race 2 or 3 categories a year, and it doesn't seem to happen so much these days. Watching the new boy, Fabian Tarbarelli, who is one of the new faces in Porsche Carrera Cup paddock. And there is Caio Castro, the number 22, who is also trying to break the deadlock set by Daniel Newman earlier on. This is so tough to predict how this is going to go, because Daniel Newman's time is mighty, 1:41.33. You can see how mighty it is because it's 1.2 seconds clear of Claudio Reyna. So now the lap times are starting to increase. The pace is getting higher, and that is a very frustrated Caio Castro, currently getting stuck there behind Matheus Roque. Now, Matheus Roque was actually 3rd quickest earlier on in Q1. And the back end steps out. Goodness me, Matheus Roque nearly throwing the car into the kitty litter, right into the path of Caio Castro. Get out of the way then. You've thrown your lap away. I'm still on one. Thank you very much, sir. We'll have a quick talk about that in the bar later. So Caio Castro takes Matheus Roque, who obviously threw away his lap and then decided, well, no, I'm not going to get a fast lap time in. I'm not going to hamper Caio Castro. At least I'm not going to hamper him anymore. I might have already done a little bit, but I'm going to move over and let him go. Right, Lucas Locatelli's done a 1:42.6. Here goes Caio Chavez, 1:42.2. Cecilia Rebello, 1:42.4 for Cecilia Rebello. So that is very good work indeed as we start to get closer. Jose Moronito, 1:42.21. So we're really chasing this time of Daniel Newman's time. Still good for the moment for pole position, but they're 0.7 of a second away. And now Gerson Campos steps up into second place, 1:42.0. There is Gerson Campos in the Pinheiro car. Track limits for Fabian Tarbarelli. His time is deleted. But he's still got plenty more to get from this session. 3.5 minutes to go. And we need to see what the times are doing. Brilliant first sector from Caio Chavez, 19.9. That's comparable to Dan Newman as Gerson Campos pushes out a little bit wide. 20.0 on the first sector for Gerson Campos. Again, he's in the ballpark. But only one driver on track is in the 19th for sector 1, and that is Caio Chavez, but it's still 0.2 of a second slower than Dan Newman has managed so far. Here is Caio Chavez. Here's the man who could deny pole position for Dan Newman. A 49.5 in the second sector. He's catching the time of Dan Newman. There is Dan Newman's time on the left of your screen. Gerson Campos second, Caio Chavez fourth. They're the men in the ballpark. 49.5 for sector 2 for Chavez, 19.9 for sector 1, slower than Newman, but comparable. Caio Chavez digging deep to try and find the pole time on Newman. He can go for another lap if this one doesn't work. Will he get pole this time? Has he got it? Yes, he's got it! 1:41.1. An amazing third sector. Daniel Newman fans' heart sinks again. Sadek Leiter is now on a flying lap as Gerson Campos is trying to find the pace now. His third sector was not quick though. He remains on a 1:41.84 as Caio Castro gets a 1:41.842. Third quickest for Caio Castro now. Well, it was always going to be tough for Dan Newman to hold on to the pole, but on this occasion, it slips again. More time found. Caio Chavez's original time was a 1:41.6. He's now found a 1:41.1, so he's made half a second. Sadek Leiter, third quickest. Good lap time, 1:41.63. There's Leonardo Herrmann. Spun on Q1 on his second corner of qualifying. Never mind second fastest lap. Fresh out of the pits and straight into a spin. So Leonardo Herrmann is hoping that he can find the pace, but he's just got nothing this weekend in Estoril. Pole position earlier in the season in Velocidad, and he's down in 12th position this time. So this is not going well for Leonardo Herrmann. His confidence on this circuit is just not where it should be. That's what's affecting his rhythm. Decent second sector for Caio Chavez on this flying lap. As he crosses the line, he may go quicker still than a 1:41.1. And that will just add insult to injury for Daniel Newman. But at least this time he hasn't found the same amount of time on him. Oh, Caio Castro! That's right off the race circuit for me. I think that's going to be a deleted time. Track limits for Jose Monanito. His best lap time gets deleted now. As Caio Chavez still runs ahead of Dan Newman and Gerson Campos, who is down to 6th place now. Overtaken by Mario Delara, who is the leading driver in sport now. And Caio Castro, P5. Then behind Campos, it's Jose Monanito, Cecilio De Bello, P8, Lucas Locatelli, and Matthias Roque. So it certainly looks like the female motorsport fans watching along will have two great ladies to cheer in the top 10 of the races this afternoon, because we'll have Antonella Bassani starting P3, and we've got Cecilio De Bello in the top 10 twice, I do believe. Time has ticked down to 0. Caio Chavez remains on the top spot, but he's not going to go quicker. So that one lap was enough for Caio Chavez to remain king of Estoril. But he steals the pole position away from Daniel Newman in the dying minutes of this session. Lucas Locatelli there, trying to go quicker still. What's he doing? 20.1, that's his personal best in the first sector. 49.7, that's his personal best in sector 2. This could be good enough for top 5 for Lucas Locatelli if he can just tidy up Parabolica. Out of the final corner, back on the power, look for the line. You almost lean forward in the car like a sprinter in the Olympics. Is this going to be a top 5 time for Locatelli? 7th, so close. But that's the second best sport lap we've seen from Q2. Here comes Leonardo Herrmann, who's down to 14th now. Best second sector, 50.219. As another lap time is deleted. This time it's Jose Monanito's time. Is deleted for track limits, I'm afraid. As Mario Delara goes up to 3rd, 1:41.585 for his final lap. And across the line we go then to see if there's going to be any more major changes in the top 5. I don't think there will be. Certainly not many people running on well, nobody's running in purples. Not many people are running on personal bests either. They're just finishing off the runs essentially. And so it's going to be double trouble for Marcel Muller in Carrera Cup and for Caio Chavez in Sprint Challenge. There is Caio Chavez in the back of your picture. Oh no, sorry. That appears to be the other pale blue car in the mix. That's the one that belongs to Andrei Goczynski, I believe. But Caio Chavez, double bubble pole position. Getting one step closer to lifting the title in the Sprint Challenge, of course. Again, I don't think much translation is needed there. Somebody's a very happy chappy. 2 pole positions from 2 qualifying sessions, and Caio Chavez now has 190 points ahead of Gerson Campos on 148, Leonardo Herrmann on 147, which is why 14th on the grid is such a hammer blow for Herrmann's championship assault. Gerson Campos starts all the way back in P6, and Caio Chavez, the championship leader, on pole twice. So it's a big deal here at the Circuito Estoril, and an excellent pair of qualifying sessions. We really did get some extraordinary performances there from our drivers, who have given us a nail-biting quartet of race grids. We will have race 1 from Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge a little later this afternoon, in a little under 90 minutes time now, because of the slight delays in A getting started and B continuing after that clear up of the gravel trap. But we are going to go racing twice this afternoon, with some extraordinary racing to come. It's going to be an amazing battle for these 2 fantastic drivers on pole position. Marcel Muller and Caio Chavez, both on the run to the title in 2025, although in Marcel Muller's case, it's a title that he will feel was robbed from him after winning 3 races and then punctures took them away from him. Certainly for the man in the Sprint Challenge pole, Caio Chavez, it's just another notch on the bedpost of the 2025 championship campaign. for Miguel Paludo this weekend is yet again just about banking some points. Bring it home gradually. You've already done all the hard work. You've allowed Marcel Muller to fight back in the latter stages of the season. But the more he wins, the more Miguel Paludo gets closer to being champion. Great qualifying sessions, so nearly a history maker from Daniel Newman, who will start twice in the races this weekend, this afternoon and tomorrow morning, which again sets us up for a potential bit of history. Can Dan Newman grab a victory if he can't get a pole position? The Cascais Grand Prix is going to be a fantastic weekend here in Portugal, and it's wonderful to see all of the fans really soaking up the atmosphere here in Portugal. It may be a Porsche Brazil championship, but certainly the Portuguese holiday has been fantastic, and everybody has been soaking up the atmosphere. We've got 2 great races today, 2 great races tomorrow, and then, of course, on Sunday, we have the 300 kilometers. It's going to be a fantastic week of racing. We hope you've enjoyed qualifying. Grab yourself something to eat, grab a drink, and join us this afternoon for race 1 of the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil and the Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil. There's still plenty to do, and we're just getting started. From Jake Sanson and from my producer, Nicholas Otterloo, thanks for watching qualifying. We'll see you in a short while when racing gets underway.